Chapter 806. From the Darkness Dominion to the Fringe, Han Shuo had to pass through the Dominion of Death and the Dominion of Lightning. There were no transportation matrices available. It was a long journey for Han Shuo. 3 months later, Han Shuo had crossed Mirage City and Blackwater City and arrived at the territory of the City of Gorging Clouds. During this time, Han Shuo and Rose had tried their best to avoid major cities. When they passed through Mirage City and Blackwater City, they would only pass through some towns and fortresses. They did not even enter Mirage City or Blackwater City. One day, they finally arrived at the territory of the most powerful city in the Darkness Dominion, the City of Gorging Clouds. Unlike usual, Han Shuo and Rose did not continue to travel through remote paths. Instead, they headed straight for the City of Gorging Clouds. Why didn't you give way earlier this time? Rose was rather surprised to see that Han Shuo had changed his mind. She asked, "Are you going to the City of Gorging Clouds?" For the past 3 months, only Han Shuo and Rose had been traveling together. Rose seemed to be in a good mood. She was no longer cold and aloof. She was much more talkative than when she was with the Han family in the City of Shadows. It seemed that she really didn't like crowded places. Although the mastermind of the attack on Soaring Cloud Mountain Range was Field, the real helper was Larrickson of the House of Broadhurst. The House of Broadhurst was the most powerful family clan in the City of Gorging Clouds. Their patriarch, Yaris, was the city lord of the City of Gorging Clouds. Not only did Larrickson's plan fail, but 3 members of the House of Broadhurst were also killed by Han Shuo. Han Shuo didn't believe that Larrickson could let go of this grudge. Now that Han Shuo had entered the City of Gorging Clouds, he wanted to learn more about the situation there. If possible, Han Shuo planned to take the risk and eliminate Larrickson to get rid of a major threat for himself and the Han family. That's right. I want to see how strong the City of Gorging Clouds is. Han Shuo nodded. Rose did not know the identity of the attackers, and that was why she questioned Han Shuo's decision. The City of Gorging Clouds is the most powerful city in the Darkness Dominion. Its overall strength far surpasses that of the City of Shadows. The House of Broadhurst is also the oldest family clan in the Darkness Dominion. There are many experts in the city, and they are very united. After the House of Lavers left the City of Shadows, they migrated to the City of Gorging Clouds. We have forcibly occupied the House of Lavers' property in the City of Shadows. No matter what, the House of Lavers will bear a grudge against us. I wonder how the House of Lavers is doing in the City of Gorging Clouds. Han Shuo put on a faint smile and said, "Come, let's go to the City of Gorging Clouds and have a look." Rose had always been obedient to Han Shuo's suggestions, and this time was no exception. Half a month later, Han Shuo and Rose arrived at the City of Gorging Clouds. The city gate was solemn and solemn. The city gate was made of shiny black boulders that reached into the clouds. The divine guards at the gate wore gloomy faces and gave off an extraordinary aura. Several enormous energy crystal cannons were mounted on top of the city gates. The muzzles of the cannons were glistening with dazzling radiance. Those energy crystal cannons rely on the energy from the energy towers at the rear to fire. Not even high gods can withstand an attack of that degree. A low god will be blasted to death, Rose explained when she saw Han Shuo's gaze lingering on the energy crystal cannons. The City of Gorging Clouds is indeed extraordinary. Come, let's enter the city and have a look. Han Shuo and Rose observed the city for a while before they paid the entrance fee and entered the city. After entering the city, under Rose's guidance, Han Shuo walked around the city for a while. He discovered that the defenses of the City of Gorging Clouds were much stronger than those of the City of Shadows. There were many defensive towers and energy crystal cannons constructed from energy crystals. Groups of calm and indifferent divine guards would pass by from time to time. Rose concealed her silver hair, and Han Shuo slightly altered his appearance. He believed that no one in the city would recognize him. Then, he asked a group of divine guards passing by, "Excuse me, where is the Laver's residence?" The Laver's residence? The divine guard stared blankly for a moment. He looked at the few black crystal coins that Han Shuo had stuffed into his hand and asked the divine guard beside him, "Is there a family clan in the city called the Laver's residence?" "There is. A family clan that just arrived from the City of Shadows is called the Laver's residence. I heard that a woman named Donna from the Laver's residence will be marrying Lord Larrickson's son in a few days. Hee hee. This also means that the Laver's residence will become a vassal of the House of Broadhurst. Another divine guard interrupted and said to Han Shuo, the Laver's residence is located in the south of the city. Thank you very much, replied Han Shuo and rose before they departed. Han Shuo did not expect that such a day would come for Donna. Although he had gone through a lot with the Laver's residence, Han Shuo had always been grateful to Donna. Previously, when Field attacked him, Han Shuo believed that it had nothing to do with Donna. Now that he heard that Donna would be marrying Larrickson's son, for some reason, Han Shuo couldn't help but feel a little uncomfortable in his heart. After obtaining the information, Han Shuo and Rose stealthily made their way to the southern district of the City of Gorging Clouds. As they were in the City of Gorging Clouds, divine guards were constantly passing through the city. In order to not expose his identity and strength, Han Shuo did not travel too quickly. It took him a day and half a night to arrive at the southern district and locate the Laver's residence. Compared to their mansion in the City of Shadows, the Laver's family's manor was much shabbier. The southern district of the City of Gorging Clouds wasn't considered a wealthy area. Han Shuo felt rather apologetic when he saw the sparse buildings in the manor. Without any particularly tight defenses, a few demon generals stealthily infiltrated the manor under the night sky. As demon generals refined from high gods, their ability to conceal their presence was even greater. Without alerting anyone, the demon generals managed to learn everything about the Laver's residence. Soon enough, one of the demon generals found the gymnasium where Donna was. As Donna was not a high god, the barrier of darkness she deployed could not stop Han Shuo's demon generals. In the gymnasium, Donna was clad in an emerald green combat gown. She was valiantly attacking Dolores. Donna's brows were filled with worry. She did not seem to be celebrating her wedding. Dolores had completely become Donna's target to vent her anger on. Under her relentless attacks, Dolores was in great pain. Donna's fists landed all over his body, and his face was covered in bruises. Bang! Dolores's back collided with the metal wall of the training field. Stop! Dolores hastily raised his hands and begged for mercy. In a pitiful voice he said, "It's about time. It's already so late. I should go back and rest. I'm done." Again, Donna shouted and was about to give chase again. "Elder sister, I know that you are in a bad mood, but you can't vent on me every day, can you?" Dolores shrieked. "The previous incident had nothing to do with me. I was only brought there by the Patriarch because I was familiar with that area. Besides, that youngster killed second uncle and took everything from us in the City of Shadows. It's only right for us to retaliate. Elder sister, you are also a member of the House of Lavers. You should understand the situation. If it wasn't for your younger brother Dolox's, Brian wouldn't have become enemies with our family in the first place, and we wouldn't have to deal with all these messy matters," Donna said furiously. "Now that our House of Lavers has fallen to such a state, I have been sacrificed by my father to marry that good-for-nothing. Why? Why do I have to bear all of this?" Donna yelled and charged at Dolores again. Another round of violent punches and kicks landed on him. Donna's graceful and elegant bearing back when she was on profound continent was nowhere to be found at this moment. Donna was gradually losing control of her mind, and her temper was much worse than usual. Dolores did not dare to resist and allowed Donna's punches to rain down on his body. When Donna finally grew tired, Dolores shrieked, "Don't ask me. If you want to know, go ask the Patriarch. I'm not qualified to answer your questions." Upon finishing those words, Dolores limped and hastily ran out of the gymnasium. After Dolores left, Donna seemed to have lost all of her strength. Exhaustion struck her all of a sudden. What's the point? The interests of the family are above everything else. I have been taught this since I was young. How can I stand by and watch the members of the Lavers family be humiliated and walk down the path of destruction? Donna said helplessly, "Come on, hit me." Suddenly, a low voice sounded from the entrance of the gymnasium. As soon as the voice faded, all the doors of the gymnasium automatically shut. Layers of bizarre boundaries suddenly formed around the gymnasium, isolating all sounds from the outside world. Donna, who was at a loss, forced a smile and shook her head. She looked at the person who suddenly appeared in front of her and mumbled to herself, I must have suffered too many blows recently. I'm actually hallucinating. Big Sister Donna, this isn't a hallucination. It's me. Han Shuo suddenly felt a pang in his heart as he looked at Donna standing before him. Was this still the same calm, graceful, and elegant Donna who never panicked no matter what happened? The Donna of profound continent and the Donna in front of him were worlds apart from this despondent and dejected Donna. So be it, Donna shrieked. She suddenly charged at Han Shuo and recklessly punched and kicked at Han Shuo. She cursed, Why? Why must you go against my family? Why? Why must you kill my second uncle? Why must you destroy everything in the Lavers family? Tell me, when have I, Donna, ever wronged you? Give me a reason. Why did you? Donna bombarded Han Shuo with every punch, yelling and screaming as though she had gone mad. After a while, the despondent Donna suddenly felt that every punch that landed was so real. She abruptly stopped her attacks and looked at Han Shuo blankly. Her eyes gradually regained clarity. After a long while, Donna covered her mouth and cried out in surprise, It's really you? How is this possible? Why are you here? I happened to be passing by and decided to come and see you. Han Shuo put on an unnatural smile. She stared deeply at Han Shuo for dozens of seconds before she suddenly threw herself into Han Shuo's chest. Hugging Han Shuo, she suddenly burst into tears. Chapter 807. Han Shuo could feel Donna's body trembling. For a moment, he was at a loss as to what to do. The memories of him and Donna on profound continent began to flow into Han Shuo's mind. After crying for some time, Donna suddenly pushed Han Shuo away and glared at Han Shuo. What are you doing here? Han Shuo didn't know what to say. After staring blankly for a long while, he finally said, I heard that you were getting married. I came to see you. That's none of your business. Donna was infuriated when she heard Han Shuo bring up the matter. She hatefully said, Are you satisfied now? Haven't you caused enough harm to my family? What more do you want? Han Shuo was suddenly at a loss for words. He looked at Donna, who was crying, and felt rather guilty. He softly sighed and said, This isn't what I want to see. I have always been on the passive side when it comes to enmity with your House of Lavers. If it wasn't for your second Uncle Avery making things difficult for me and trying to kill me twice, I wouldn't have killed him. What's the point of saying all this? You have won. You have obtained everything that belonged to our House of Lavers. You killed my second uncle. You are amazing. Donna cried out. We are now living under someone else's roof in the city of gorging clouds. I have been sacrificed as the only bargaining chip. What are you doing here? Sister Donna, come with me. Han Shuo suddenly said, I know that you don't like what your family has arranged for you. You shouldn't be the one to bear the burden of the House of Lavers. Why don't you leave this place and find a new place to live? Donna put on a sad face and shook her head. Her smile was uglier than her crying face as she said, Do you think that's possible? Do you know what our House of Lavers will face once I leave the city of gorging clouds? Our family will be exterminated. Do you think I would be so selfish as to leave hundreds of lives in the city of gorging clouds for my sake? Han Shuo was silent. He knew that Donna was not that kind of person. Go, I don't want to see you again. Just pretend I never met you. Donna looked at him with tears in her eyes and said resolutely, For your sake, I will not harm the House of Lavers again when your father ambushed me last time. Han Shuo looked deeply at Donna and said, No matter what, I will remember your kindness to me. Big Sister Donna, we will meet again. After saying this, Han Shuo turned around and left. You're such a heartless person. You really left. As soon as Han Shuo left, Donna seemed to have lost all her strength. She collapsed to the ground and wept. Back on profound continent, Donna and Han Shuo had gone through many trials and tribulations together. During the days she spent with Han Shuo, she was captivated by the mysteriousness around Han Shuo. As they got to know each other better, Donna grew to admire Han Shuo more and more. When she returned to Elysium, she gradually discovered that she had developed an unusual longing for Han Shuo. That was why she had arranged everything for Han Shuo and waited for Han Shua's return. After painstakingly waiting for Han Shua on Elysium for many years, Donna gradually discovered that her feelings for Han Shua were more than just simple admiration. When the day Han Shua actually appeared in the Laver's residence, Donna was overjoyed. Then, right after Donna confirmed that she had true feelings for Han Shua, the relationship between Han Shua and the Laver's family suddenly soured. Following that, a series of events occurred. The relationship between Han Shua and the Laver's family grew more and more intense. In the end, they became enemies because of Avery. The fiercer the relationship between Han Shua and the Laver's family, the more painful it was for Donna. On one side was her family and relatives that she had grown up with, and on the other side was Han Shua, whom she had just developed a good impression of. Donna did not know what she should do. When the Laver's family was forced to leave the City of Shadows and Han Shua killed Avery, who was hiding in Hushvale City, the agony in Donna's heart reached its peak. She did not know how she should live on. Soon after, she learned from the City of Gorging Clouds that Han Shua's reputation in the City of Shadows was like the sun at high noon. Not only had the Han family completely replaced the Laver's family in the City of Shadows, Han Shua had also defeated Aobashi and Ralph to become the leader of the Divine Guard Chiefs. His Fifth Corps had also won the first place in the team competition. Judging from the strength Han Shua displayed, he had obviously attained mid-stage High God realm. She, on the other hand, was still just a mid-god. Be it Han Shua's status in the City of Shadows or his personal strength, they were both far superior to hers. All of a sudden, Donna felt that she was getting further and further away from Han Shua. It was at this time that the Laver's family was facing the threat of Larixon, who was half the master of the City of Gorging Clouds. Her father begged her to agree to Larixon's request to marry the infamous hedonistic son of a rich family. Donna felt that she was no longer a good match for Han Shua, but she could not bear to disregard the fate of her family. Therefore, she finally agreed to Field's request. Donna, who was utterly disheartened, tried to forget everything. But it was at this moment that Han Shua suddenly appeared before her. Unfortunately, there was no turning back. What else could she do? Han Shua returned to Rose's side with a gloomy face. It was obvious that he was not in a good mood. What's wrong? Rose bunched her brows and asked. The House of Lavers brought this upon themselves. Shouldn't you be happy? Having stayed with the Han family for so long, Rose more or less knew about the conflict between the Han family and the House of Lavers. She had worked with Han Shua to kill Avery in Hushvale City. She thought that Han Shua would kill every last member of the Lavers family. She did not expect that Han Shua would behave in such a strange manner. I don't care about the fate of the Lavers family, but there is someone in the Lavers family who has helped me time and time again. I will never forget this debt of gratitude. Han Shua forced a smile and shook his head. He turned to look at the Lavers' residence and said, Don't be in such a hurry to leave. Let me kill someone first. Rose, of course, had no objections. She nodded indifferently. After staying in the City of Gorging Clouds for 2 days, Han Shua learned about Larixon's son, Rashid. Like all hedonistic young masters, Rashid possessed weak strength and spent his days indulging in debauchery. Thanks to the influence of the House of Broadhurst in the City of Gorging Clouds, there were only a few youths in the city who dared to offend him. He spent his days roaming around the city with a group of divine guards, buying expensive divine weapons and visiting the most extravagant places. Rashid had almost no merits. He was obsessed with women and did not put any effort into his cultivation. If Donna were to marry him, her life would be ruined. After figuring out the places that Rashid frequented, Han Shua finally made his move. One night, Rashid was in the largest auction house in the City of Gorging Clouds, the Illusory Galaxy. He was auctioning off a female slave of a foreign race with a group of hedonistic young masters. There were elves on Elysium as well. The beauty of elves was not only famous on Profound Continent, but also in the land of the gods. Rashid was currently auctioning off a female elf. She had a petite body and appeared to be around the age of a human girl. Several hedonistic young masters were excitedly bidding for the little elf girl. Their gazes were filled with passion, as though they had some kind of perverted fetish. After several rounds of bidding, The price of the elven girl was raised from the base price of 5,000 black crystal coins to 30,000 black crystal coins. At this high price, only a few people were still bidding. Rashid's face was flushed with complacency, as if he felt that victory was already in his grasp. Rashid, you are about to get married. You still dare to buy a female slave? Teased another person who was bidding against Rashid from a distance. What's there to be afraid of? Rashid chuckled mischievously and said, that woman's family clan has long declined. She can't control me. I'm marrying her because my father wants me to. He hopes that I can gain control of that family clan through this relationship. She should know this very well. She won't dare to interfere in my affairs. Hee, but that woman is not bad-looking. She should be fun to play with. So you are determined to win today? That person stared blankly for a moment before he asked smilingly. Of course. Rashid laughed and said, 40,000 black crystal coins. Dirk, do you really have to compete with me? The young man named Dirk shrugged and said, 40,000 black crystal coins for a slave girl? It's not worth it. I'm not playing with her. Haha, thank you, Rashid said proudly. He enjoyed the feeling of being superior to others. 50,000. Han Shuo, who had slightly altered his appearance, suddenly shouted, Huh, who are you? I've never seen you before. You must be new to the city of gorging clouds, right? How dare you compete with me? Rashid, who was about to enjoy the fruits of his labor, immediately creased his brows and said with a gloomy face, Do you want it or not? If you don't have money, then give up. Don't talk nonsense. Han Shuo shouted like a boorish man. Those who recognized Rashid were stunned. They all looked at Han Shuo sympathetically, thinking that this outsider's corpse would be strewn across the streets tonight. Well, it's rare to meet an interesting person. Rashid's face changed and he shouted, 60,000. 70,000. Han Shuo said leisurely. Rashid made up his mind and shouted again, 80,000. 100,000. Han Shuo glanced at Rashid and said sarcastically, If you don't have enough crystal coins, you should stop now. You can't afford to play with me. Rashid was flustered and exasperated after hearing Han Shuo's words. He shouted, 110,000. You're crazy. She's just a slave girl. She's worth 50,000 black crystal coins at most. Is there something wrong with your brain? Han Shuo laughed and said, I'm not playing anymore. Then, Han Shuo turned around and left. Rashid had never suffered such humiliation before. He whispered to the person beside him, You stay here and bring the slave girl back. Then, he looked at the others and said, The rest of you, follow me. I'm afraid someone is going to die. Serves that guy right for offending Rashid without getting any information. The crowd was discussing fervently. As soon as they walked out of the auction house and turned into a deep alley, Rashid and his men surrounded them as expected. He sneered and said, You're courting death. I've been waiting for you for a while. Han Shuo grinned and suddenly dashed out. 17 flying swords whizzed out. After a series of wails and howls, everyone including Rashid was beheaded, leaving only a pool of blood behind. Let's go. We're leaving the city for the fringe, Han Shuo said to Rose, who was hiding in the dark. The two of them calmly retreated. A few people from the city of gorging clouds who came out of the auction house to watch the show only saw the two of them disappear. Chapter 808. 2 years, 2 whole years. Han Shuo and Rose crossed the Death and Lightning Dominions and arrived at the Space Dominions. Han Shuo was not in a hurry to continue on his journey. Instead, he spent his time in various cities in the Death and Lightning Dominions, meditating in the mountains and rivers, collecting many precious medicinal ingredients and precious treasures for forging demonic weapons. Having put down all his burdens, Han Shuo's mind was very peaceful during the 2 years. Han Shuo's demonic yuan increased rapidly after being nourished by many miraculous medicinal pellets. He even showed signs of breaking through to the Omen realm. Over the past 2 years, his avatars of death and destruction had reached late-stage mid-godhood. Whenever he lacked the divine energy of death and destruction, he would target god hunters hiding in the mountains and rivers. Both of his avatars were on the verge of a breakthrough, and were on the verge of ascending to Haigadhood. Han Shuo had become more and more adept at using the fused domain of divinity. In his confrontation with Rose, the new domain of divinity, formed by his two mid-god avatars, had the absolute upper hand. It suppressed Rose's domain of divinity to the point where it could barely defend itself. It had only been 2 years, but Han Shuo, who had been cultivating his state of mind with all the experience he had gained, had achieved an extraordinary improvement. His entire being had become more and more unfathomable. Even Rose, who had been following him, felt that Han Shuo was becoming more and more unfathomable. Of course, during this period, Rose had also benefited a lot from Han Shuo. Han Shuo generously shared with Rose the expensive medicinal pellets refined from the rare treasures he collected from the mountains and rivers. Rose's body was reborn. Every time she cultivated with the pill of tranquility, her mind would be at peace and she would gain new insights into the energy of darkness. Rose, who had always been cultivating by herself, had experienced all sorts of nourishment from the medicinal pellets. Her strength had improved by leaps and bounds, and she was on the verge of a breakthrough. After spending all day and night with Han Shuo, Rose discovered that Han Shuo had never treated her as a servant. On the contrary, he would always give her a share of the benefits. After spending 2 years together, Rose had unknowingly grown dependent on Han Shuo. Sometimes, she would even smile when they talked. This change meant that Rose had subconsciously accepted her identity and Han Shuo, the Space Dominion. As soon as Han Shuo and Rose arrived, they discovered that this place was different from any other dominions. In the dominions of death, darkness, and destruction, the gods that cultivated in those 3 energies were the most common. Gods that cultivated in the energy of wind, fire, lightning, and earth were few and far between. Gods that cultivated in the energy of life, light, and water were nowhere to be seen. However, the Space Dominion was different. In the mountain range of the Space Dominion, there were gods that cultivated in all sorts of energies. Gods that cultivated in the energy of 12 fundamental energies could be found everywhere. They minded their own business, unlike the dominions of darkness, death, and destruction, where they would fight each other as soon as they met. The fringe was located between the Space Dominion and the Destiny Dominion. It would take Han Shuo at most 3 months to arrive at the fringe. However, Han Shuo was in no hurry to leave after setting foot in the Space Dominion. According to his agreement with the 5 elite zombies and Little Skull, he would meet them in the ethereal city of the Space Dominion. Counting the days, Han Shuo decided to stay in the Space Dominion for a while and meet the 5 elite zombies and Little Skull first. It had been a long time since Han Shuo last saw the 5 elite zombies and Little Skull. When Han Shuo left, both the 5 elite zombies and Little Skull did not possess outstanding strength. Han Shuo was worried about their safety, just like a father worried about his wandering son. The 5 elite zombies were refined from the origin energy of the 5 elements. They had an instinctive understanding of the 5 elements. After cultivating in the energy of earth, life, fire, water, and metal, Han Shuo was not worried about their state of mind. As long as they could increase their divine energy, Han Shuo believed that the 5 elite zombies would improve even faster than Sanguiner and Gilbert. It had been several decades since they last met. Han Shuo was full of expectations for the 5 elite zombies. He wondered what realm they had cultivated to. If there were no mishaps, the 5 elite zombies should have at least entered Midgod realm, right? Han Shuo thought to himself. Other than the 5 elite zombies, Han Shuo also promised McKinley, who cultivated in the Edict of Space, to come to the Space Dominion. Therefore, it was necessary for him to stay in the Space Dominion for some time. After the demon general circled around the mountain range, Han Shuo took out the Holy Grail and communicated with McKinley with his consciousness. McKinley, I've arrived at the Space Dominion. What should I do next? You've arrived at the Space Dominion? McKinley immediately became excited when he received Han Shuo's transmission. He cried out in surprise, You've really arrived at the Space Dominion? It had been a long time since Han Shuo had contacted McKinley. He had only promised him that he would come to the Space Dominion. McKinley's soul was very excited to see that there was a chance to break free from his shackles. What an interesting place. I'm now standing in the territory of the Space Dominion. Tell me, what should I do? Han Shuo transmitted, "Head to Ethereal City." "I used to live in Ethereal City," replied McKinley's divine soul excitedly. The territory of the Space Dominion wasn't smaller than that of the Darkness Dominion. However, there were only 3 main cities in the Space Dominion: Ethereal City, Holy Spirit City, and Illusory City. These 3 cities occupied 2/3 of the territory of the Space Dominion. The 3 cities didn't restrict entry to any gods. Gods who cultivated any power of ultimacy could live in the 3 cities. Generally speaking, the divine guards of the 3 cities would not interfere too much with the lives of the residents in the cities. Small-scale fights and disputes were common in the Space Dominion. The divine guards of the 3 cities would only intervene when there were large-scale fights or incidents that affected the normal operations of the 3 cities. Not all the divine guards of the Space Dominion cultivated in the Edict of Space. Many of them were formed spontaneously. Their only purpose was to maintain the normal operations of the 3 cities. They enjoyed the free and unfettered life in the Space Dominion. They only came to the Space Dominion to avoid wars between other dominions. They did not wish for anyone to destroy the Space Dominion. The Overgod of Space and Time traveled through the different planes of space and time. He rarely spent time in the Space Dominion. He took a laissez-faire attitude toward everything here, delegating all his authority to the people in charge, making the Space Dominion a very special region. Han Shuo immediately smiled and said, "That's great. I'm also heading to Ethereal City. Now that we have the same destination, there's no need for me to take a detour." "What are you going to Ethereal City for?" It was McKinley's turn to be puzzled. He knew that Han Shuo had never been to the Space Dominion before. Therefore, he did not understand why Han Shuo wanted to go to Ethereal City. "Nothing. I've arranged to meet someone there," transmitted Han Shuo to McKinley. After thinking for a moment, he asked, "Where are you going to Ethereal City? Who are you going to meet? What should I do?" McKinley's divine soul inside the Holy Grail hesitated for a moment before he transmitted to Han Shuo, "Let's go to Ethereal City first. I need to understand the current situation there. I haven't made up my mind yet." Han Shuo understood that McKinley was only a soul at this moment and did not have the ability to resist. If the person he wanted to meet had ulterior motives, he would have no choice but to consider it carefully. "All right, I'll go to Ethereal City first." "You still have time to think about it," replied Han Shuo. He put away the Holy Grail that contained McKinley's soul. The divine soul inside the Holy Grail is very powerful. "Who is he?" cried Rose in surprise. She was aware of the communication between Han Shuo and McKinley. Therefore, she could sense McKinley's divine soul undulations inside the Holy Grail. "He's just an unlucky high god. I came to the Space Dominion this time to make arrangements for him," Han Shuo casually explained. Rose seemed very surprised. She stared blankly for a moment before she asked, "What realm is that divine soul at?" "Late-stage high god." "Haha. But now that he has lost his divine body, he can only stay inside the Holy Grail pitifully," replied Han Shuo. After replying to Rose, Han Shuo took a deep breath and smilingly said, "Let's go. Let's head to Ethereal City as soon as possible." Half a month later, Han Shuo and Rose entered Ethereal City. Ethereal City was different from any other city in the Darkness Dominion. The divine guards in this city were not very strict. They did not even ask Han Shuo and Rose to pay any crystal coins. They merely took a look at their divine tablets and let them in. The Space Dominion did not have to worry about attacks from other dominions. Generally speaking, large-scale fights would not break out in the city. The divine guards only needed to maintain some basic order. To Ethereal City, their existence seemed to be dispensable. Gods cultivating in all sorts of energies could be seen everywhere in Ethereal City. Perhaps because there were only 3 main cities in the Space Dominion, Ethereal City was much livelier than most of the cities Han Shuo had seen. All kinds of divine weapons, scrolls, energy crystals, and medicine shops could be found in every corner of the city. Ethereal City was enormous. Even if one were to fly, it would take at least 2 to 3 days to explore the entire city. For an average high god or mid-god, it would take even longer. Han Shuo did not pay too much attention to the bustling Ethereal City. From the moment he entered Ethereal City, He unleashed his consciousness and roamed around the city with Rose. The 5 elite zombies and Little Skull were refined from Han Shua's blood essences. Han Shua could sense their presence within a certain range. As long as any one of them was an ethereal city, Han Shua would be able to locate them after roaming around the city. Han Shua unleashed his consciousness to the fullest and flew along every street with Rose. But after flying for half a day, he did not detect a single presence. Could it be that not a single soul has arrived? Or did something unexpected happen? Han Shua thought to himself, a bit worried. While Han Shua was feeling a little paranoid, he suddenly sensed Earth Elite Zombies' presence. Han Shua was overjoyed. He hastened his pace and flew towards Earth Elite Zombies' location with Rose. Chapter 809. In the west of Ethereal City, a dazzling battle was going on like a raging fire. 3 mid-gods of Earth were standing in a triangular formation, looking around vigilantly. Their brows were tightly bunched, and they were ready to deal with any sneaky attacks at any moment. Suddenly, the earth between the 3 of them collapsed. A pair of arms stretched out of the earth and grabbed at the ankles of one of the mid-gods. "It's coming again." That mid-god was startled. He smashed down with his giant hammer. The other 2 mid-gods were stunned for a moment before they shrieked, "Kill him!" The energy of Earth was blasted down by the 2 mid-gods at the pair of hands. The pair of hands that protruded from the depths of the ground suddenly crystallized. Earth element frantically gathered at the center of the palms, forming a thick layer of scale armor. His right hand moved forward to block the incoming hammer, while his empty left hand fiercely slapped the sole of the man's foot. Arg! A miserable shriek sounded. The mid-god felt as though all the energy of the earth had struck his foot. Crack! Crack! The bones in his foot were completely shattered. Blood spurted out from his wound. "Don't step on the ground," shouted another mid-god. He had already blasted his divine energy into that area. When his divine energy landed on the ground, the familiar ground seemed to have turned unfamiliar. It was as though layers upon layers of barriers had blocked his divine energy. He immediately knew that his attack had failed. A bright broadsword carrying the divine power of the 3rd person suddenly stabbed towards the area where the big hand had reached out. With a clang, the ground that should have been soft reflected iron and stone, and a series of sparks appeared from the tip of the broadsword. Evidently, the attack did not cause any damage to the attacker. The gods of Ethereal City were observing the battle from afar. They were whispering to each other curiously. Both of them were gods who cultivated in the energy of the earth, but the one who hid deep underground had an unfathomable mastery of the energy of the earth. That ambusher, who had never been seen before, seemed to be the true favorite of the earth. Judging from the divine energy radiating from his hands, the attacker's strength wasn't much different from the 3 on the ground. They were all mid-stage mid-gods. However, even though they were at the same level of strength, the person hiding deep underground always had the upper hand in the battle. He did not leave the ground at all, and could appear or hide in any region of the ground as he pleased. Once his attack failed, he would immediately return to the ground. It was obvious that the person's control over the power of the earth had reached an extremely miraculous level. Who was that guy? He was only a mid-god, but his control over the energy of the earth had reached such a profound level. "I can't believe it," exclaimed an onlooker who cultivated in the wind element. "I don't know. I've seen a few high gods cultivating in the energy of the earth, but I've never seen anyone who could hide in the depths of the earth. He was just a god, but his palms were actually able to use earth elemental essence to form a crystalline wall. Could it be that this person had been hiding his strength all along? Otherwise, how could a mid-god have such a profound understanding of the energy of the earth?" exclaimed another onlooker in amazement. "I don't know. This mysterious expert has been in Ethereal City for quite some time, but until now, no one has come out from the ground. I wonder what kind of person he is," exclaimed the onlookers. While the crowd was conversing, that person mysteriously disappeared into the depths of the earth as though he had never been there. 2 of the 3 mid-gods cultivating in the energy of the earth had failed in their attacks, while the soul of the 3rd had been completely crippled. His divine energy had been channeled into his leg, causing the meridians in his leg to rupture. Blood was slowly flowing down his leg. The three of them no longer dared to stand on the ground. They hovered in midair as though they were facing a formidable foe. Gods cultivating in the energy of the earth could only exert their greatest strength when they were on the ground. With their feet on the ground, they could borrow the energy of the earth and gather the element of earth at a much faster speed than when they were hovering in midair. In the eyes of the crowd, the scene of three gods cultivating in the energy of the earth, not daring to land on the ground when facing an ambusher of the same realm, was extremely bizarre and ironic. Those who didn't know better might have thought that the three were cultivators of the energy of the wind, and that the three of them were fighting against an invisible expert of the energy of the earth. Han 2, come out and fight me if you have the guts. Don't hide underground like a coward, roared the mid-god whose foot was bleeding. He looked down at the ground and gnashed his teeth. The other two were standing on either side of him. Their brows were tightly bunched as though they were having a headache. Han 2, it's him. Why would he come to the Space Dominion? A mid-god cultivating in the energy of fire suddenly cried out in surprise. He seemed to know who that person was. Friend, do you know of the mysterious expert cultivating in the energy of the earth? Asked some of the onlookers curiously. Han 2 is an expert of the earth element who has recently risen to prominence in the Earth Dominion. It is said that when he first arrived at the Earth Dominion, he was only a mid-stage low god. But in just a few short decades, that fella has made continuous progress and cultivated to mid-stage mid-god realm. He has clashed with many people in the City of Shadows, but not a single one of them has been able to capture him. The insider's vanity was greatly satisfied when he saw that everyone's gazes were focused on him. After taking a short pause and seeing that the onlookers were still looking at him, he put on a faint smile and explained, he's very adept in using the energy of the earth. Some say that even high gods might not be able to match him in understanding the energy of the earth. He's a very mysterious character. No one knows where he came from or what his goal is. Not long after he arrived at the Earth Dominion, he attracted the attention of many high gods. There are rumors that the Temple of the Earth Dominion has sent word that the Overgod of Earth wishes to meet him. However, he refused. He is a loner in the Earth Dominion and has offended many people, but even some high gods couldn't capture him. So it's him. When I passed through the Earth Dominion the last time, I heard about this person. A god had just walked over from afar. He said, I don't know what's going on recently, but outstanding young experts have appeared in all the dominions. I heard that there's a guy from the Life Dominion called Han Mu who is also very powerful. He has also attracted the attention of the Overgod of Life. There's also a guy from the Fire Dominion called Han Hua. His name is very strange. They all have the word Han in them. There's also a fellow from the Darkness Dominion called Brian. He is also very famous. It is said that he came to Elysium from a low-level material plane not too long ago. He possesses miraculous abilities in medicine refinement. His strength is also terrifying. It is said that he even defeated a high god. There are so many strange and eccentric experts in the dominions these days. A low god of death remarked, that guy named Brian is the real deal. I heard some news about him when I was in the Destruction Dominion. It's said that he founded some celestial pearl pharmacy and is doing quite well in the Darkness Dominion. The onlookers were all engaged in a lively discussion, ignoring the three mid-gods of Earth who were hovering in mid-air and vigilantly watching their surroundings. Suddenly, a group of gods who cultivated in the energy of Earth and wore the same type of divine armor rushed over from a short distance away. It was obvious that the group of 10 were from a certain family clan or a certain divine guard corps. One of them was an early-stage high god, 3 were late-stage mid-gods, and the rest were mid-stage mid-gods. The high god leading the group was short and muscular. His skin was yellowish and withered. As soon as he arrived, he glared at the 3 mid-gods hovering in midair and shouted, "What are you waiting for?" The 3 mid-gods who didn't dare to land on the ground hastily returned to the ground. The mid-god who had one of his legs crippled said miserably, "Lord Verone, Han 2 should be underground. Do I need you to remind me?" The person named Verone replied in a low voice. His eyes glinted with ferocious light as he looked around and coldly shouted, "Everyone, shouldn't you step further away from us?" Varone possessed high god strength, while the majority of the onlookers only possessed low god and mid god strengths. After hearing Varone's shout, the onlookers instinctively backed away. "Hantu, I know you are underground. Don't think that you can hide from us just because you came to the Space Dominion. Let me tell you, no matter how far you run, no matter where you go, we will find you," shouted Varone coldly as he lowered his head and looked at his feet after the onlookers had left. All of a sudden, sharp thorns burst out from the depths of the earth. The mid-god, who had one leg crippled, was struck between his legs by a sharp earthen thorn. He let out a miserable shriek and his eyes rolled back. His leg was bleeding profusely. The divine guards did not expect that they would be ambushed with Varone around. They were caught off guard and 3 of them were struck by the thorns. They either had their feet penetrated or their legs injured. They hastily returned to the sky and cursed, "Despicable! Hantu, show yourself if you have the guts," roared Varone furiously. He directed the divine energy in his body towards the ground. A deafening rumble sounded from the depths of the earth. After all, Varone possessed high god strength. The power of his attack was no small matter. 100 meters away, the simple-looking Earth elite zombie emerged from the ground. He said to Varone, "Stay where you are if you have the guts. My father will be here soon. Let's see if you still dare to talk nonsense." Although Earth elite zombie's appearance had not changed after so many years, his eyes were filled with intelligence. He had even started using vulgarities when he spoke. He pointed at Varone from afar and behaved arrogantly. He looked very much like Han Shua. Varone stared blankly for a moment. He did not expect that Earth elite zombie would have a father. When he saw his subordinates groaning and groaning in pain, Varone furiously shouted, "Even your grandfather won't be able to stop me today, let alone your father. I'm not leaving. Let's see if you can hurt me." Chapter 8:10. Han Shua, who had been rushing over, had received Earth Elite Zombie's excited message. Just like how Han Shua could sense Earth Elite Zombie could also sense Han Shua's presence within a certain range. Rose, who had been following Han Shua around Ethereal City, was very surprised to see Han Shua suddenly accelerate and fly towards a direction. She had no idea what Han Shua was up to. Rose did not ask any questions. She silently followed behind Han Shua while making guesses in her mind. "Father, you're here." Even though Earth Elite Zombie was a few blocks away, he could still hear Earth Elite Zombie's cheers coming from the depths of his soul into Han Shua's consciousness. "I'll be right there." The demon generals that were scattered in the vicinity had arrived at Earth Elite Zombie's location and witnessed the battle between Earth Elite Zombie and the 3 mid-gods. Naturally, they had also heard the conversation between Varone and Earth Elite Zombie. Han Shua did not expect that Earth Elite Zombie would become a mid-stage mid-god in just a few decades. He had even made a name for himself in the Earth Dominion. This made Han Shua very happy. To Han Shua, the stronger the 5 elite zombies, the safer they would be. Han Shua was even more astonished to hear that even the overgod of the Earth Dominion had summoned Earth Elite Zombie. Han Shua was not aware of the dispute between Earth Elite Zombie and Varone, but it was not important to him. Regardless of whether Earth Elite Zombie was in the right or wrong, Han Shua would not let Varone off the hook for attacking Earth Elite Zombie. Being protective of one's own children was a bad trait that all fathers had. Han Shua was no exception. "Just you wait. When my father arrives, all of you will die." Earth Elite Zombie, who had half of his body on the ground, glared at the enraged Varone from afar and said viciously, "I'd like to see who your father is. If I can't catch you, I'll find my father." Varone glared at Earth Elite Zombie in the distance and gnashed his teeth. Varone knew that Earth Elite Zombie would immediately hide underground if he made a move. Varone, who was also a cultivator of the energy of Earth, discovered that even a high god like him could do nothing to his opponent. Varone felt very frustrated and sometimes wondered if Earth Elite Zombie was deliberately toying with them. Otherwise, how could a mere mid-god reach such unimaginable heights in the energy of Earth? "Stand there if you have the guts." Earth Elite Zombie jumped out of the ground, pointed at Varone, and taunted. The Earth Elite Zombie could sense that Han Shuo would be able to reach here soon. Now that he had something to rely on, the Earth Elite Zombie became even more domineering. He still had that naive look on his face, but in Varen's eyes, he was the most despicable person on Elysium. Fine, I won't. No matter who comes today, don't even think about leaving. Varone shouted coldly. While Earth Elite Zombie and Varone were at each other's throats, a ray of light streaked across the sky and suddenly stopped beside Earth Elite Zombie. Father, you're here. Haha, it's great to see you. Earth Elite Zombie cheered. He stepped forward and giggled. Are you all right? Han Shuo took a few deep glances at Earth Elite Zombie's body. He only felt relieved when he discovered that Earth Elite Zombie was unscathed. Soon after, he shot a glance at the enraged Varone and asked, So this is the guy? Yeah. His vengeful spirit hasn't dissipated. He has been chasing me ever since we left the Earth Dominion. How annoying. Earth Elite Zombie put on a disgusted face and said furiously, All I did was kill a few people in their city. What's so great about that? Besides, they were the ones who offended me first. Those you killed were all members of noble family clans. If I don't capture you, I won't be able to answer to my family clans. Varone roared furiously as he pointed at Earth Elite Zombie. You don't have to answer. Since we have met, don't even think about going back. Han Shuo stared at Varone coldly, but he said to Earth Elite Zombie, How do you want him to die? Varone finally realized where Earth Elite Zombie learned his domineering manner from. Earth Elite Zombie was already arrogant enough, but this father of unknown origin was even more arrogant. With just a glance, Earth Elite Zombie had pronounced Varone's death sentence. Furthermore, Earth Elite Zombie looked as though it was a matter of course, as though killing a high god like Varone was a piece of cake. Varone was so furious that he laughed. Haha, your son only knows how to hide. It seems to me that you, as a father, only know how to talk big. Come on, kill me if you have the guts. Rose, kill them all. Han Shuo bunched his brows and instructed Rose in a low voice. Rose, who had just arrived beside Han Shuo, stared at Earth Elite Zombie with a strange look on her face. She asked puzzledly, He's your son? Yes. Han Shuo nodded and asked, What's wrong? Is there a problem? Rose shook her head and replied, There's no problem. I just find it a little strange. Back at the Demon Mountain, Spider Goddess Rose had met Earth Elite Zombie and Metal Elite Zombie. However, Rose did not expect Earth Elite Zombie to have such a close relationship with Han Shuo. Father, who is he? Earth Elite Zombie asked with a silly smile. Try to sense it. Han Shuo put on a faint smile and said to Earth Elite Zombie, paying no attention to the fuming Varone in the distance. Although Earth Elite Zombie's senses weren't as terrifying as Han Shuo's, they were much more powerful than the average person on Elysium. Earth Elite Zombie stared deeply at Rose for a moment before he suddenly jumped up and cried out in surprise, The one from the Demon Mountain? Humph. Rose glared at Earth Elite Zombie. She was still rather angry and said, You thief. Yes, I did. What are you going to do about it? Although Earth Elite Zombie appeared simple and honest, he had traveled for so many years that he had learned many things. As soon as he arrived and heard the instructions that Han Shuo gave to Rose, he knew that Rose must have a strange relationship with Han Shuo. Therefore, he wasn't the least bit afraid. God damn it, they are looking down on us. One of Varone's divine guards shouted furiously. Varone, who was infuriated, could no longer endure it. He let out a loud roar and charged at Han Shuo. All right, that's enough, shouted Han Shuo. He turned to Rose and said, They are courting death. Send them on their way. Rose shot another glare at Earth Elite Zombie before she finally obediently charged at Varone. Her body moved, and a pitch-black darkness suddenly shrouded the entire area. The boundless aura of darkness devoured all light. Rose was like a fish in water. She killed several mid-god divine guards in an instant. Rose was a mid-stage high god while Varone was only an early-stage high god. Although there was only a gap of one realm between the two, it was an insurmountable gap. This was especially the case when Rose had the advantage of attacking first. She had shrouded the entire area in her dominion of darkness. Varone, who had lost the initiative and had yet to figure out Rose's true strength, was obviously doomed. Father, why are you with her? Earth Elite Zombie was very curious about the relationship between Han Shuo and Rose. He immediately asked when he saw that Rose was very obediently going to Verone. After you all left, my strength had improved a little. Therefore, I made a trip to the Demon Mountain to avenge you and Metal Elite Zombie. I fought with Rose, and she was willing to become my slave. So, I took her in, said Earth Elite Zombie. After all, he was worried that the Earth Elite Zombie would blame him, his father, for not killing Rose. Hoo-hoo, so that's how it is. Back then, she hunted us down and tried to kill us. But now, she's working for us, said Earth Elite Zombie proudly. He did not seem to be dissatisfied with the fact that Han Shuo did not kill Rose. After spending so much time with Han Shuo, Rose's style of doing things had been influenced by Han Shuo. She did not attack Verone right from the start in her Dominion of Darkness. Instead, she made use of the fact that Verone was lost in the Dominion of Darkness to kill those mid-god divine guards. Only a mid-god could stand no chance against Rose. In the blink of an eye, all those divine guards who had been pursuing Earth Elite Zombie from the Earth Dominion to the Space Dominion were killed by Rose. It was only after their corpses collapsed to the ground that Rose went all out against Verone. Under Rose's attacks, Verone could not retaliate at all. He tried his best to defend against Rose's attacks, but he felt more and more powerless. As soon as Verone saw Han Shuo, he treated Han Shuo as a mid-god. That was because no one could tell that Han Shuo's most powerful demonic arts were his avatars. Verone did not know about Han Shuo's reputation. In his eyes, Han Shuo was just a mid-god. Verone, naturally, would not take a mid-god seriously. He did not even take Rose seriously. Although he couldn't quite gauge Rose's strength, he had heard Han Shuo giving Rose the order. In his opinion, a person who could be ordered around by a mid-god like Han Shuo, no matter how strong he was, couldn't be too powerful. Therefore, he started to look down on Rose. It was only when Rose unleashed her domain of divinity unique to high gods that Verone realized that he had made a grave mistake. If he had known that Rose possessed mid-stage high god strength, he wouldn't have stayed in the first place. He would have fled as far away as he could. Verone, who was filled with regret, could only helplessly fend off Rose's merciless attacks. At this rate, it was only a matter of time before he lost his life. Just as Verone was about to lose all hope, an aged voice sounded from afar, "Gentlemen, please stop." An old man with a head full of white hair and a withered yellow wooden staff tore through space and appeared out of nowhere. With a wave of his hand, the area where Rose and Verone were fighting was instantly frozen. Time stopped, and Rose and Verone froze everything around them. Chapter 811. A miraculous restraining energy was transmitted from the withered yellow staff in the old man's hand. In the next moment, both Rose and Verone froze. Even Han Shuo was affected by the shackling energy the moment it spread out. 2 seconds later, Han Shuo came to his senses. When he looked at Rose again, he discovered that she and Verone had been separated from each other. The domain of divinity released by Rose had also vanished. Han Shuo immediately realized that he was also affected by the strange time-stop energy. He turned to look at the old man who suddenly appeared and asked in a deep voice, "Who are you?" Rose and Verone were dazed for a few seconds before they suddenly realized what had happened. Rose was rather angry because she could have killed Verone in just a few moments. She had been strangely restrained for a few seconds and missed the best opportunity for her to kill. In contrast to Rose, Verone, who had just escaped from the gates of hell, was overjoyed. He turned to the old man holding the withered yellow staff and hastily thanked him. "Thank you, Lord Baum." The old man called Baum wore a calm and composed face. He nodded slightly and said indifferently, "Verone, I think it's time for you to return. That Hantu guy is no longer someone you can capture." Verone turned around and glared at Han Shuo and Earth Elite Zombie. He forced a smile and said, "I understand. I will return and report this to my superior. Lord Baum, sorry for the trouble." "It's all right," replied Baum. "Han Tu and that youngster, this isn't over yet. Scarlet City will not let this matter rest. Just you wait. Verone put on a fierce face and asked, "That woman? What's your name?" "I will remember you," Rose replied disdainfully. She remained silent beside Han Shuo. "Do you think you can escape?" Han Shuo coldly shouted. In a deep voice he said, "I said that I will kill you and you will die. No one can stop me." With that said, Han Shuo suddenly walked towards Verone step by step, his eyes fixed on the old man named Baum. Baum furrowed his brows, seemingly displeased by Han Shuo's impudence. "I'm the city lord of Ethereal City. Duels are not allowed in the city. No matter who you are, since you've come to Ethereal City, you'll have to abide by the rules of Ethereal City," Baum said softly as he looked at Han Shuo approaching him. "Why didn't you stop Verone's men when they were chasing after Han too? Why did you suddenly show up when Verone was about to die? Aren't you a little incompetent as a city lord?" Han Shuo sneered. Baum possessed late-stage high-god strength and cultivated in the mysterious edict of space and time. Under normal circumstances, Baum would not be willing to make an enemy of Verone. However, from what Han Shuo observed, Baum and Verone obviously knew each other. What Baum was doing was to protect Verone. For the sake of Earth Elite Zombie, Han Shuo wasn't afraid of offending Baum. Although Han Shuo possessed the power to freeze time and space, he couldn't maintain it for a long period of time. The reason why Han Shuo fell for Baum's attack was that he did not have any defensive measures in place. Han Shuo believed that once he was prepared, it wouldn't be easy for Baum to freeze the space around him. Fights between mid-gods take place in every corner of Ethereal City. I don't have the time and energy to monitor every fight. I can only detect fights between high gods with the energy towers I have set up beforehand, explained Baum calmly with his eyes locked on Han Shuo. He could sense that Han Shuo was not an ordinary mid-god. That aura was clearly not something a mid-god should possess. For someone to attack Han Shuo after learning his identity, he was either an idiot or a truly fearless expert. Han Shuo was obviously the latter type of person. Bullshit. Han Shuo snorted disdainfully at Baum's explanation. Step by step, he accelerated towards Baum and Verone. Cauldron Spirit's energy abruptly poured into his body, and the invincible Omen body was instantly formed. Baum's heart sank. He waved the yellowed wooden staff in his hand. Bizarre undulations suddenly spread out from the staff. The energy from the wooden staff affected the edict of time and space. A space-time boundary suddenly enveloped Han Shuo. In an instant, Han Shuo felt as though he was trapped inside a space-time mirror. He couldn't move his body at all. A wave of undulations even landed on his consciousness, as though it was trying to freeze his thoughts. Han Shuo's consciousness suddenly split into hundreds and thousands of strands. They constantly intersected and vibrated in his brain, forming a vortex that devoured the wave of undulations attacking his consciousness. Before the bizarre undulations could form any resistance, the hundreds of attacks from Han Shuo's consciousness vortex landed and minced the undulations into pieces. Without the threat from the strange undulations, Han Shuo immediately sensed that every cell in his body had been frozen solid. He could also feel that he was frozen in midair. It was as though space had turned into a fossil, and he had become a specimen within a fossil. It was a very strange feeling that made Han Shuo very uncomfortable. The energy of the space-time boundary filled every corner of the area. However, after Han Shuo's consciousness evaded the attack, the strange feeling only lasted for 1 or 2 seconds. In the next moment, all the cells in his body seemed to have been suddenly activated. They rapidly exploded, split, and reorganized. The invincible Omen body was like gunpowder that had been ignited. In an instant, an astonishing defensive power erupted. Crisp sounds could be heard coming from Han Shuo's bones. Finally, after a loud crack, Han Shuo regained the ability to move. At that moment, Han Shuo felt as though the entire space-time had been shattered. Many space-time fissures visible to the naked eye were torn apart and then mended at an even faster speed. As though nothing had happened, Han Shuo continued to walk towards Baum and Verone with a grim and callous face. Other than Baum, Verone, Rose, and Earth Elite Zombie quivered when they heard the crack. They knew that something must have happened to Han Shuo and Baum. However, as they were affected by the space-time boundary, they did not know what exactly happened. They looked at Han Shuo and Baum blankly. Verone, who was about to leave immediately, was overjoyed when he saw that Han Shuo had disregarded Baum's attempts to stop him. He did not rush to leave the dangerous area, but waited excitedly for Han Shuo's impending tragedy to befall him. Verone had heard of how powerful the city lord of Ethereal City was when he arrived. He knew that although Baum did not like to meddle in other affairs, his strength was unfathomable. If he had not shown Baum the city lord's token on his way here, Verone would not have dared to pursue Earth Elite Zombie in Ethereal City. When Verone saw that Baum had his brows tightly bunched, it was as though he saw hope in defeating Earth Elite Zombie again. I'm going to kill Verone. I'm going to kill Verone. It has nothing to do with you. Are you really going to stop me? Han Shuo continued to walk towards Baum after breaking the space-time boundary. He deliberately unleashed Cauldron Spirit's energy to the sky as he stared at Baum and shouted in a deep voice. Baum was caught in a dilemma. To be able to break his space-time boundary in just 3 seconds meant that Han Shuo possessed the strength to fight him. He knew that once the battle began, the outcome would not be pleasant. He might even be injured. Those who cultivated in the Edict of Space would not fall into a deadly situation as long as they were careful. Being injured was usually a very miserable experience. Although Baum was somewhat apprehensive about Han Shuo's strength, as Han Shuo did not have an overwhelming advantage in terms of strength, Baum was not worried about his own safety. However, to an expert of his realm, being injured was a very painful thing. Seeing that Han Shuo was getting closer and closer, Baum began to consider if he should really fight Han Shuo because of Baum. Verone seemed to have noticed Baum's hesitation and hastily said, "Lord Baum, this is Ethereal City. As the city lord, you should sternly stop an outsider who dares to challenge your authority." Verone did not know what kind of relationship his city lord had with Baum, but judging from the current situation, it should not be a deep friendship. He began to worry that Baum would abandon him because of Han Shuo's overwhelming strength. Verone's shout made the hesitant Baum make up his mind. He was the city lord of Ethereal City. Even if it was for the sake of his reputation, he had no choice but to fight. If you want to kill Verone, you can wait until he leaves Ethereal City. Baum stared at Han Shuo silently. His pupils gradually contracted and he said, "As long as he is in Ethereal City, I will stop you. Rose, go kill him. I will stop this old man." After getting his answer, Han Shuo no longer hesitated. Fearing that Verone would seize the opportunity to escape, Han Shuo calmly instructed Rose. As soon as Han Shuo finished those words, the demon's lair edge suddenly extended out from his palm. 17 flying swords whizzed out and bombarded Baum. As soon as the 17 flying swords appeared, Han Shuo, who was wielding the demon's lair edge, also rushed forward. He also threw out the banner of hallucination with his left hand to confuse Baum's vision. At the same time, the banner of hallucination shrouded Verone, who was about to escape. Rose and Han Shuo had been together for a long time. They were used to sparring and sparring. Therefore, she knew Han Shuo's moves like the back of her hand. As soon as Han Shuo made his move, Rose coordinated with him and flew forward. She infused her darkness divine energy into her long hair. Under the cover of the banner of hallucination, she mysteriously appeared beside Verone. Before Verone could react, the endless darkness once again engulfed him. Baum immediately felt the pressure increase when the 17 flying swords slashed at him. He had no choice but to forcefully alter the Edict of Space and time with the wooden staff in his hand. He distorted the space around him. It was as though he was in the middle of a space-time turbulence. Rays of dazzling light flashed around him. They were all space-time rifts. The flying swords were clearly aimed at Baum. However, when they were hit by the distorted space, they immediately fell into another dimension. If it weren't for the fact that Han Shuo's consciousness was in sync with the flying swords, allowing him to skillfully control each flying sword, and forcefully withdraw the flying swords before they were completely engulfed by the space-time turbulence, all 17 flying swords would have been lost. Those who cultivate in the Edict of Space are indeed difficult to deal with, Han Shuo thought to himself. Chapter 8:12. Light, darkness, earth, fire, wind, water, lightning, and death were the 8 elemental energies, while fate, space, life, and destruction were the 4 elemental energies. The majority of the people on Elysium cultivated in the 4 elemental energies. Among the 12 elemental energies, the edictal forces were the most unique. Among the edictal forces, fate and space were the most mysterious. Han Shuo had rarely fought against gods of these 2 elemental energies. Therefore, he wasn't familiar with their attack patterns. It was only when he fought Baum that Han Shuo discovered that Baum, a cultivator of the edictal of space, was a real headache. The space around Baum was constantly twisting and changing. Baum was standing right in front of Han Shuo, but under the influence of the edictal of space-time, Han Shuo had the illusion that Baum was on different material planes. The feeling was so real that Han Shuo found it extremely difficult to accurately target Baum with his attacks. One after another, space-time fissures were torn open, creating a strange and blurry space turbulence. The 17 flying swords accidentally fell into the space-time fissures. Had it not been for Han Shuo's quick reflexes and the extremely mysterious connection he had with his flying swords, the 17 flying swords would have been devoured by the space-time fissures. The distorted space-time also hindered the probing of Han Shuo's consciousness. Under normal circumstances, as long as Han Shuo's consciousness had locked onto a person, no matter how hard the person tried to conceal their aura, they would not be able to escape Han Shuo's detection. But Baum was different. The distorted space-time was constantly changing. Han Shuo's consciousness could clearly lock onto Baum, but he would immediately lose track of Baum after a burst of space-time fluctuation. Sometimes, Han Shuo could clearly see Baum standing right in front of him, but his consciousness could not detect Baum's existence. It was as though Baum was just a hazy illusion, giving him the feeling that it was unreal. Naturally, the attacking power of the 17 flying swords was greatly reduced when they failed to lock onto Baum. Layers of space-time barriers and space-time fluctuations kept Han Shuo at bay. Much of the demonic yuan energy that he had infused into the flying swords had been consumed, making it impossible for him to truly harm Baum. This was a very depressing matter. Han Shuo clearly had surging energy, but he could not find a way to vent it. He could not unleash his powerful attacks on Baum. Cauldron Spirit's energy was frantically circulating within Han Shuo's body. His consciousness was split into many strands to track down Baum's existence. The 17 flying swords whizzed past Han Shuo and were obstructed by space-time fissures. The space-time barrier distorted the flying swords, and the flying swords were forced into the correct trajectory. It was as though Han Shuo and the 17 flying swords were lost in the boundless starry sky. Han Shuo was extremely sullen, but City Lord Baum of Ethereal City wasn't having a good time either. The 17 flying swords wreaked havoc in the distorted space he had released. Every time they whistled, they would release a powerful corrosive power and cold poison. He had no choice but to use his divine power to affect the laws of space and forcefully tear a crack in space to block the 17 flying swords. Just as Han Shuo was feeling extremely dejected, Baum was also feeling the same. Generally speaking, when he released his distorted space and used his divine energy to tear open space-time fissures and pull any living beings into them, the creatures that fell into the space-time fissures would forever be lost at the edge of the boundless universe. They would never be able to return to Elysium, the prime material plane. However, the 17 flying swords had broken this rule. Baum clearly saw the 17 flying swords falling into the space-time cracks time and time again. Yet, every single time, they would fly back. It was simply inconceivable. Even if a mighty god were to fall into a space-time crack, he would not be able to find his way back, let alone a lifeless weapon. However, the 17 flying swords under Han Shuo's control had done it. Time and time again, the flying swords would fly back into the space-time cracks. They would spare no effort in attacking Baum. Baum had no choice but to constantly use his divine energy to distort and tear the space-time to prevent the flying swords from approaching him. Baum did not have it any easier than Han Shuo. What shocked Baum even more was that in the space-time discontinuum he had created, Han Shuo seemed to always be able to detect his position. The 17 flying swords would chase after him again and again, forcing Baum to shuttle through the space-time cracks to evade the attacks. This was yet another anomaly that made Baum turn pale with fright. In this space-time discontinuum he had created, Baum had connected a dozen or so space-time tunnels that overlapped with each other, allowing him to shuttle through space-time cracks in a short period of time. Baum might appear to be in the space-time discontinuum, but as soon as he entered a space-time crack, he would be separated from Elysium by an unknown distance. Baum found it inconceivable that Han Shuo was able to lock onto him so quickly. Baum was becoming more and more apprehensive of Han Shuo. While Han Shuo and Baum were in a state of despair, Rose had found Verone as instructed by Han Shuo. Verone had fought Rose before and naturally knew that she was much stronger than him. When he saw that Han Shuo had not been defeated by Baum in an instant, he decided to retreat. Unfortunately for him, Rose did not give him the chance. The moment Han Shuo made his move, Rose had gone all out. Verone was only distracted for a moment. By the time he came back to his senses, Rose had already arrived beside him. Before he could react, he found himself in boundless darkness once again. Rose's ferocious attacks were about to land on him. It was at this moment that Verone started regretting his decision. He thought to himself, why didn't I take the opportunity to escape? Why did I have to stay and watch the show? I'm done for. I'm once again trapped by this terrifying woman. It was obvious that Verone was no match for Rose. This time, Rose had gone all out in her attacks. She had even disregarded her own injuries to kill Verone. With that, Verone had no chance of surviving. In just a few moments, he had suffered multiple injuries on his body. Han Shuo, who had been attacking for a long time but was unable to make any headway, was extremely frustrated. He had fought against so many experts, but never once had he been so powerless. Even when fighting against Hafs, who was also a late-stage high god, Han Shuo was able to fight to his heart's content. He even managed to gain a slight advantage by relying on Cauldron Spirit's energy. But when fighting against Baum, who cultivated in the Edict of Space, Han Shuo's 17 flying swords were unable to form the Avicii Hell magic formation. He would even lose track of Baum if he was distracted for a moment. He could not sense any trace of Baum's aura. This made Han Shuo feel very helpless, but there was nothing he could do. Just as Han Shuo was about to curse in frustration, he received a message from Cauldron Spirit. Master, let me help you. You can break this annoying space barrier? Han Shuo was stunned. There are a dozen or so smaller space-time tunnels that have been forcibly merged together. That guy is constantly changing his position in each space-time tunnel. Every space-time tunnel that he enters will be cut off from Elysium. That is why your consciousness will suddenly lose track of him, explained Cauldron Spirit. Then, it transmitted, Master, don't forget that the interior of my cauldron is also an independent space. In the largest space of the cauldron, there are also smaller spaces that I have opened up for demon generals. My understanding of the profound edict of space is not inferior to his. Back then, the exalted demon lord also relied on my understanding of the profound edict of space to forcefully blast open the interplanar tunnel between the two universes. Breaking this space barrier shouldn't be a problem for me. All right, give it a try. Han Shuo was overjoyed and hastily transmitted. Then I will have to withdraw the energy I transferred to you first. Otherwise, I might run out of energy. Cauldron Spirit explained to Han Shuo. Han Shuo immediately felt the energy in his body rapidly flowing back to Cauldron Spirit. It was only when Han Shuo sensed the feeling of exhaustion that Cauldron Spirit suddenly flew out of Han Shuo's body. It turned into a streak of dark radiance and shot into the space barrier created by Baum. Suddenly, hundreds of pitch-black shadows fluttered out of the cauldron of myriad demon like a swarm of bats. They dispersed in all directions within the distorted space. Even the 17 flying swords were manipulated by the cauldron of myriad demon. They turned into 17 whizzing shadows and shot in 17 different directions. Baum, who was feeling extremely gloomy, immediately sensed that the space he had created was violently fluctuating. The layers of fluctuations filled all the interplanar tunnels he had created using his divine energy. In a miraculous manner, the fluctuations arrived at the trigger point of the interplanar tunnel he had created. Baum, who was shuttling through the interplanar tunnel, was aghast. He knew that only someone who cultivated in the edict of space and possessed strength equal to his own could find the trigger point of the interplanar tunnel he had created. But that person clearly didn't cultivate in the edict of space. How is this possible? Baum turned pale with fright. It was only now that Baum started to panic. A person who could accurately pinpoint the trigger point of the interplanar tunnel meant that when he tore apart the interplanar tunnel and left this place, that person could also locate and destroy the trigger point of the interplanar tunnel he had created, cutting off any chance of escape. In other words, if Han Shuo gained the upper hand in this battle, Baum might not just be injured, he might even die. Baum began to regret. He regretted putting himself in such a disadvantageous position because of a trivial matter. It was at this moment that he suddenly sensed a force bombarding all the trigger points of the interplanar tunnels. Before he could react, a violent rumble came from all directions. One after another, the interplanar tunnels collapsed. Baum's mind was in a mess. He hastily walked out of the interplanar tunnel he was temporarily residing in. He did not want to be dragged to the edge of the universe by the shockwaves. He was not the overgod of space. He did not have the ability to travel through interplanar tunnels at will. When his interplanar barrier completely collapsed, Baum heard a blood-curdling scream. He hastily lowered his head and saw that Verone had been killed. Baum knew that all his efforts were in vain when he saw Verone's lifeless body collapsing to the ground. For some unknown reason, Baum secretly rejoiced. With Verone dead, there seemed to be no need for him and Han Shuo to continue fighting. Chapter 8:13. As soon as the space-time barrier was broken, Han Shuo could clearly sense Baum's location. However, as Cauldron Spirit had left his body, Han Shuo, who could not borrow Cauldron Spirit's energy, was in no hurry to attack Baum. It was at this moment that Han Shuo heard the blood-curdling screams of Verone's death. Han Shuo stared blankly for a moment. After seeing that Verone was dead, Han Shuo began to consider if he should continue fighting Baum. There was no enmity between him and Baum. There was no reason for him to fight Baum to the death. Therefore, Han Shuo was somewhat apprehensive of Baum because even if the space-time barrier was broken, he was not confident that he could kill Baum. Therefore, Han Shuo began to hesitate. It was at this moment that the cauldron of myriad demon flew back and instantly disappeared into Han Shuo's body. It immediately transmitted, "Master, the space-time barrier has been broken. This fella's strength is extraordinary. I wonder if he has any other tricks up his sleeves. Should we make a move?" Rose, who had killed Verone, silently returned to Han Shuo's side. She looked at Baum vigilantly, waiting for Han Shuo's order. She would lead the charge and fight Baum to the death. Verone is dead. I don't think there's any need for us to fight to the death, right? To Han Shuo's surprise, while he was hesitating, Baum spoke first. Baum's attitude was much friendlier than before. He even squeezed out a somewhat forced smile. It was obvious that Baum was not used to this kind of forced smile. It was as though his smile was forcefully pulled out of his skin and flesh. It looked very awkward no matter how one looked at it. Han Shuo stared blankly for a moment. He stared at Baum in silence. His eyes were flickering with uncertainty. Baum was startled. He thought to himself, "Is this fella really going to fight me to the death?" When the space barrier was broken, he knew that not only could Han Shuo fight him for real, but he also had the means to threaten his life. He was extremely wary of Han Shuo and did not want to form an irreconcilable grudge with Han Shuo just because of Verone. Baum's imagination ran wild while he was secretly on guard. He was afraid that Han Shuo would suddenly launch a sudden attack and catch him off guard. That's right. We have no enmity between us. There's no need to make a big fuss over a small character. While Baum's mind was in turmoil, Han Shuo suddenly put on a faint smile. He took the initiative to withdraw the 17 flying swords that were hovering in the air, indicating that he had no intention of continuing the battle. This was Ethereal City. Han Shuo had to stay in the city to wait for the arrival of the other 4 little ones and Little Skull. On the other hand, Baum was the city lord of Ethereal City. If Han Shuo were to fight recklessly, he would not be able to stay in Ethereal City any longer even if he won. Even if he won, it would be impossible for him to come out unscathed. If the battle were to continue, the most likely outcome would be a lose-lose situation. If Baum were to be injured at this moment, his plan to head to the fringe would be postponed indefinitely. It was obvious that this was not in line with Han Shuo's original intention. Therefore, he did not recklessly attack. Baum secretly heaved a sigh of relief when he saw that Han Shuo had voluntarily withdrawn his magical weapon. He also withdrew his defensive measures as if he was facing a formidable enemy. After taking a few deep glances at Han Shuo, Baum explained, "I've met the city lord of Red Earth City once. We can be considered to be friends. I did intend to protect Verone just now. However, I did not expect that you would possess such strength. My friendship with the city lord of Red Earth City has not reached the point where I would risk my life for him. Now that Verone is dead, I have nothing else to say." Han Shuo thought to himself, this person is being honest now. Although Han Shuo did not have a favorable impression of Baum, he did not have a bad impression of him either. He calmly nodded and gently replied, "Yes, there was some misunderstanding. I hope that the city lord will not take it to heart." Suddenly, a large company of divine guards flew over from the distance. There were 3 high gods among them, 2 early-stage high gods and 1 mid-stage high god. When the company arrived, the mid-god leader hastily asked, "City lord, what's going on?" The battle between Han Shuo and Baum had generated intense energy ripples. Experts who had attained a certain realm of strength would be able to detect the unusual energy ripples in the air. This company of divine guards happened to be patrolling in the vicinity and came over after hearing the commotion. After they arrived, they naturally surrounded Han Shuo, Rose, and Earth Elite Zombie in the middle of the battlefield. Each and every one of them acted as though they were facing a formidable foe. It was obvious that Han Shuo and the other 2 were enemies who had disrupted the order of Ethereal City. As soon as Baum gave the command, they would charge at Han Shuo and the other 2 without hesitation. The situation that had just eased up was suddenly filled with the smell of gunpowder. With the demon generals scattered around, the company of divine guards was right under Han Shuo's nose. Given Han Shuo, Rose, and Earth Elite Zombie's strengths, it would not be difficult for them to leave this place. Therefore, Han Shuo did not pay any attention to them. All he did was look at Baum with great interest. Baum, who had just fought against Han Shuo, knew better than anyone else just how terrifying Han Shuo's strength was. Baum was startled when he saw that the company of divine guards appeared at such an untimely time and surrounded Han Shuo and the other 2 as though they were enemies. He hastily said, "Don't attack. This friend of mine and I had a small misunderstanding. The misunderstanding has been cleared up." The divine guards were puzzled when they heard Baum's words. Before they arrived, they had sensed intense space-time undulations. From the familiar space-time undulations, they knew that Baum must have used his full strength. Furthermore, Verone's corpse was still in the city lord's mansion. Yet, under such circumstances, Baum claimed that everything that happened was just a misunderstanding. This was too illogical. After hearing Baum's words, Han Shuo knew that Baum really did not intend to fight him to the death. Han Shuo put on a faint smile and said, "City Lord Baum, if there's nothing else, can we leave now?" Of course, Baum hastily nodded. But after staring blankly for a moment, he suddenly said, "Wait." Han Shuo's face turned solemn. He slightly bunched his brows and looked at Baum in puzzlement. "Don't misunderstand. I don't mean anything else," Baum hastily explained when he saw that Han Shuo seemed displeased. "I just want to know who you are. An expert as young as you would not be a nameless character in any dominion. I just want to know the identity of the person who fought me. Is this request too much?" Han Shuo laughed involuntarily and said, "I see. Haha, my name is Brian. I am from the City of Shadows in the Darkness Dominion." Brian. Baum softly mumbled to himself as though he was pondering about Han Shuo's identity. After a long while, Baum cried out in surprise and asked, You are the owner of the Celestial Pearl Pharmacy in the City of Shadows? This time, it was Han Shua's turn to be shocked. The City of Shadows was very far away from Ethereal City. He did not expect that the City Lord of Ethereal City would know about him. That's right. I am the owner of the Celestial Pearl Pharmacy. Han Shua frankly admitted that he had nothing to hide. Upon hearing those words, the surrounding Ethereal City Divine Guards were shocked. It appeared that they had all heard of Han Shua's name. Their gazes were completely different from before. They seemed to be anticipating something. I did not expect the rumors to be true. Heroes are born from youth. Baum was greatly astonished. He had never believed the rumors from the City of Shadows in the Darkness Dominion. He thought that the rumors had exaggerated Han Shua's true strength. But after today's battle, Baum realized that the rumors were wrong. Not only did the rumors not exaggerate Han Shua's strength, but they also belittled his strength. After thinking for a moment, Baum suddenly said, "Brian, I wonder if you are interested in opening a branch of the Celestial Pearl Pharmacy in Ethereal City? If you're willing, we can have a good discussion. There are many people from the Darkness Dominion who visit Ethereal City, and all of them, without exception, have praised the miraculous medicines you refine. I believe that no matter which city you are in, as long as there are gods, they will be looking forward to your medicines." Those Ethereal City Divine Guards who were eyeing Han Shua and his party covetously a moment ago, upon hearing Baum's words, their eyes were filled with excitement. Their faces were filled with obvious amazement. They had heard far too many miraculous medicines refined by Han Shua from the Darkness Dominion. But unfortunately, Ethereal City was thousands of miles away from the City of Shadows. Even if they wanted to purchase the medicines refined by Han Shua, it would be impossible for them to travel across multiple dominions to reach the City of Shadows. This was especially true for the gods cultivating in the energy of life, light, and water. It was impossible for them to enter the dominions of death, darkness, and destruction no matter how many crystal coins they had. Those who purchased the medicines refined by Han Shua treated them like treasures and refused to sell them. Therefore, although there were many praises about the medicines refined by Han Shua, there were only a few who actually bought them. How could those divine guards not be excited when they heard that Han Shua was the owner of the Celestial Pearl Pharmacy? Han Shua stared blankly for a moment. He did not expect that Baum, who he had been locked in a fierce battle with just a moment ago, would take the initiative to invite him to set up his Celestial Pearl Pharmacy in Ethereal City. After carefully thinking about it, Han Shua felt that Baum's suggestion was only beneficial to him. With the Celestial Pearl Pharmacy in Ethereal City, not only would he be able to earn more crystal coins, he would also be able to expand the influence of the Celestial Pearl Pharmacy to all the dominions on Elysium. This was a huge temptation. Therefore, Han Shua only hesitated for a short moment before he nodded and agreed. Of course. In that case, I must thank the City Lord in advance. You're welcome. It is my Ethereal City's honor. Baum hastily replied courteously. He was obviously pleasantly surprised. He took the initiative to ask, "If you have nothing else to do, shall we talk somewhere else? I guarantee that I will help you find a suitable plot of land. If you need it, I can find you all the manpower you need." The Space Dominion is different from the dominions of death, destruction, and darkness. The environment here is freer and more suitable for all kinds of goods. You don't have to worry too much about interacting with cultivators of different energies. All right, let's have a good talk. Han Shua readily agreed. He did not expect that he would gain such a huge benefit from the fight. Chapter 8:14. At the City Lord's mansion in Ethereal City. Baum treated Han Shua as an honored guest and treated Han Shua with the utmost courtesy. Some of the people in the City Lord's mansion of Ethereal City who didn't know what was going on were secretly amazed. They couldn't understand why the City Lord would treat a young man in such a grand manner. When those people learned of Han Shua's identity from the divine guards around him, they looked at Han Shua with excited gazes. It appeared that those gods who had purchased Celestial Pearl Pharmacy from the City of Shadows had done much to promote Han Shua. Baum was different from those large and ancient family clans in the City of Shadows. Although he was the city lord of Ethereal City, he did not establish any family clan. He did not even have a single relative. His city lord's mansion was very simple and crude, but it gave off a solemn and dignified feeling. One could tell that those divine guards very much loved and respected him as the city lord. Although he did not establish any family clan, the few divine guards under his command were enough for him to firmly control the city. After arriving at the city lord's mansion, Han Shuo and Baum quickly settled on the details of the collaboration. Baum very straightforwardly seated a shop in the most flourishing area of Ethereal City to Han Shuo and enthusiastically said that he would help Han Shuo with everything. Han Shuo was not used to Baum's sudden change in attitude. After listening to Baum's arrangements, Han Shuo asked, "Thank you for your generosity, City Lord. I will give you 30% of the profits from the Celestial Pearl Pharmacy. What do you think?" Back then, Bolton and Li Wei traveled thousands of miles to the City of Shadows to look for Han Shuo to establish a branch of Celestial Pearl Pharmacy in their family clans. Their intention was to cooperate and make a fortune together. From Han Shuo's point of view, Bao must have some ulterior motives for being so enthusiastic and helping him with everything. Therefore, Han Shuo pondered for a moment before he proposed such a method. To Han Shuo's surprise, when Baum heard Han Shuo's straightforward method of dividing the profits, he shook his head and said, "There's no need for that. All you have to do is to follow the rules of Ethereal City and pay 10% of the taxes. This is the rule of Ethereal City. I won't ask for more from you." Han Shuo stared blankly for a moment. He was a little puzzled. The shop that Baum had given him was not a small one. Baum was even willing to help Han Shuo recruit manpower and settle all the paperwork. As long as Han Shuo refined the medicines, he could sell them directly. Baum was so enthusiastic in helping Han Shuo with everything, but he did not ask for any extra benefits. Wasn't this a little too strange? Under Han Shuo's astonished gaze, Baum explained, "You don't have to be so surprised. I have just told you that the Space Dominion and the Destiny Dominion are different from the other dominions. No one is forbidden from entering and living here. As the managers, we are just helping to maintain the basic operations. The environment here is completely free. Under normal circumstances, we will not interfere with your business. I only need to use 10% of the taxes from the shops in Ethereal City to maintain the Divine Guard in the city." Han Shuo was astounded. He could tell that Baum was not putting on an act, and he had a rather favorable impression of Ethereal City. Seeing that Baum really had no intention of collecting more benefits, Han Shuo naturally would not force him to pay. Han Shuo nodded smilingly and said, "Ethereal City is truly a great place. Haha, I'm starting to like it here." To Ethereal City, the existence of the Celestial Pearl Pharmacy will benefit all gods. Therefore, I will spare no effort in helping you get everything done," said Baum. "In 5 days at most, I will get everything ready for you. You can put out a notice that you are looking for clerks and pharmacists. I will have the Divine Guard announce it later. There are all kinds of talents in Ethereal City, and there is no lack of genuine pharmacists. Here, you can get anything you want." "That's great." Han Shuo put on a delighted face. He did not expect that Baum would still treat him in such a manner after their battle. This city lord who did not have any family background had piqued Han Shuo's curiosity. "If you don't have a place to stay for the time being, you can stay in the city lord's mansion. There are many empty rooms and gymnasiums here. As long as you don't mind the shabby conditions, you can stay as long as you want," said Baum. "Then I'll have to trouble you." Han Shuo didn't stand on ceremony and agreed with a smile. Baum did not continue exchanging pleasantries with Han Shuo. He arranged for Han Shuo, and Han Shuo to stay in a relatively quiet 7-story building. Except for the gymnasium on the lowest floor, the upper floors of the building were fully furnished with all kinds of living facilities. After such a long and arduous journey, Rose, who loved cleanliness, immediately took a bath and changed her clothes. Han Shuo and Earth Elite Zombie arrived at a spacious living room on the 3rd floor. Earth Elite Zombie started to narrate what happened after Han Shuo left Ethereal City, as well as the details of his dispute with Verone. From Earth Elite Zombie, Han Shuo learned that Earth Elite Zombie headed straight for the Earth Dominion after leaving Ethereal City. As the Earth Dominion had the most people cultivating in the energy of Earth, it had the most information and divine weapons on the energy of Earth. After arriving at the Earth Dominion, Earth Elite Zombie started trying to communicate with the people around him. It was only after Earth Elite Zombie left Han Shua and prepared to assimilate into this world that Earth Elite Zombie realized how wonderful and complicated this world was. Interacting with all kinds of people had allowed Earth Elite Zombie to grow rapidly. He had met both good people and those with ulterior motives. In just a few short years, Earth Elite Zombie had experienced friendships and also experienced betrayals. He had found himself in extremely perilous situations several times. But in the end, by relying on his instinctive understanding of the energy of Earth, he managed to burrow deep underground and survive. During this process, Earth Elite Zombie's strength rapidly increased. Earth Elite Zombie was born from Han Shua's body, formed from the Yuan energy of Earth in the place of extreme Earth. As a favored child of the Earth, Earth Elite Zombie's understanding of the energy of Earth was much faster than anyone else's. In countless battles of life and death, Earth Elite Zombie repeatedly made breakthroughs and cultivated to mid-stage mid-god realm in just a few decades. In the Earth Dominion, Earth Elite Zombie quickly made a name for himself with his ability to burrow deep underground. Following that, Earth Elite Zombie encountered many incidents and offended several young members of large family clans in Red Soil City. After experiencing so many troubles, Earth Elite Zombie grew bolder and bolder. Relying on his ability to travel deep underground, Earth Elite Zombie wantonly slaughtered those young members of large family clans. The matter was soon exposed. The few bigwigs of Red Soil City who lost their sons were enraged. They sent their men to hunt Earth Elite Zombie. By this time, Earth Elite Zombie had arrived at Ethereal City at the appointed time with Han Shua. Along the way, Earth Elite Zombie would occasionally emerge from the ground and be recognized by others. That was how Verone came to hunt him down. In the past few decades, the Earth Elite Zombie had experienced so much of the ways of the world and matured rapidly. Whether in terms of speech or intelligence, he had clearly matured a lot. Listening to him talk about his experiences, Han Shua knew that he had truly become a highly intelligent being. He was no longer the simple-minded Earth Elite Zombie that would only listen to Han Shua's orders and do whatever he wanted. "I didn't expect you to experience so many things after leaving me. It seems that you made the right decision back then," remarked Han Shua. When Earth Elite Zombie and the others were with Han Shua, they were completely reliant on him and followed his orders. The creatures they encountered in the Netherworld were creatures with relatively low intelligence. As a result, their growth was very slow. After arriving on Elysium and moving to other dominions, they came into contact with those who were adept at playing dirty tricks. It was only natural that they would grow faster in such an environment. Yeah, this world is wonderful, much more interesting than the Netherworld. However, the people here are all very powerful and cunning. After spending some time with them, of course I've grown up. Father, you seem to have grown much stronger than before. You have even tamed this woman." Earth Elite Zombie asked smilingly. He was still as charmingly naive as ever in front of Han Shua. "All of you are making progress. Of course I can't remain stagnant. Otherwise, I will have to rely on all of you to protect me in the future." Han Shua was very gratified. Talking to Earth Elite Zombie was like talking to a very good friend. It made him feel very comfortable. Han Shua and Earth Elite Zombie chatted about the past. Before he knew it, it was already midnight. After taking a bath, Rose changed into a dark purple robe and walked to Han Shua in a relaxed manner. Her long, silvery white hair was hanging loosely over her shoulders. She still had the faint fragrance of a bath on her body. "You have promised the soul of the Holy Grail that you will communicate with him after coming to Ethereal City." Rose walked to Han Shua and casually sat down before she softly reminded Han Shua. Han Shua only recalled the matter after hearing her words. He smilingly replied, "Thank you for reminding me. Otherwise, I wouldn't have remembered." Han Shua was worried about the safety of Earth Elite Zombie and the others. He had been searching for them as soon as he came to Ethereal City. After the battle with Baum, he was so happy that he forgot about McKinley's existence. After taking out the Holy Grail, Han Shuo started communicating with McKinley's divine soul. I've arrived at Ethereal City. What should I do for you next? Finally. McKinley seemed rather excited. He must have thought about his plan carefully. After jumping for a while, he said to Han Shuo, find me a person named Baum. If he is still in Ethereal City, it shouldn't be difficult to find him. He used to be my best friend. He should be a late-stage high god. Baum. Han Shuo immediately replied, haha, it's Baum, the city lord of Ethereal City. Haha, what a coincidence. I am in Baum's mansion right now. What? He has become the city lord of Ethereal City? McKinley was astonished. That's right. The current city lord of Ethereal City is our nanny. He possesses late-stage high god strength and cultivates in the Edict of Space just like you. That should be the case, right? Asked Han Shuo smilingly. It's him. It must be him. There's no doubt about it. That wretched bastard. He must have betrayed me to become the city lord of Ethereal City. The position of city lord of Ethereal City should have been mine. To Han Shuo's surprise, McKinley's divine soul was abnormally enraged when he heard the news. It seemed that he had a deep grudge against Baum. Chapter 8:15. From McKinley, Han Shuo learned the truth of the matter. It turned out that the city lord of Ethereal City wasn't Baum. Those who cultivated in the Edict of Space and Time, after reaching a certain realm, would often need to wander the vast universe to sense the energy of space. Back then, the city lord of Ethereal City possessed late-stage high god strength. In order to pursue greater power, he had to leave the Elysium and travel to various material planes to increase his divine energy. Before he left Ethereal City, he wanted to find a new city lord for Ethereal City. Back then, McKinley and Baum had the best chances of becoming the next city lord. As McKinley had a good relationship with the former city lord, he should have had a higher chance of becoming the next city lord. However, it was at that time that McKinley became enemies with one of the three keepers of the light, Jar. As Jar possessed late-stage high god strength, McKinley had no choice but to hide for a period of time. As he had a good relationship with Baum, he told Baum where he was hiding. Little did he expect that not long after he hid, Jar would accurately locate him. Although Jar's strength was greater than McKinley's, he cultivated in the Edict of Space. Originally, he should have had a chance to escape by tearing a rift in space-time. But just as he was about to leave, he discovered that his space-time tunnel had been destroyed by Jar, causing his divine soul and divine body to be split apart. The person who could destroy his space-time tunnel must have also cultivated in the Edict of Space, and that person's realm must not be low. McKinley recalled the fact that Baum was the only one who knew where he was hiding. Naturally, he knew who had betrayed him. It was because only with his disappearance could Baum become the new city lord of Ethereal City. Then why are you still looking for him? Han Shuo was rather puzzled after hearing Baum's explanation. If I don't look for him, I won't be able to get my divine body. He was the one who sold me out. He must know where Jar hid my divine body, replied McKinley helplessly. Once Baum learns that your divine soul is in the Holy Grail, he will surely destroy your divine soul to prevent future troubles. Aren't you just throwing your life away? Asked Han Shuo in astonishment. Baum wouldn't dare to kill me. My divine soul has a divine seal bestowed upon me by the Overgod. As soon as my divine soul completely dissipates, the Overgod of Space will be able to sense it no matter how many material planes I am in. With the Overgod's ability to turn back time, he would immediately know who killed me. Back then, when I was in Ethereal City, I worked diligently for his lordship for many years. He would definitely pursue this matter. This was also the reason why Jar only sealed me and did not dare to kill me directly. Now that things had come to this, McKinley no longer concealed his secrets from Han Shuo. He frankly told Han Shuo the reason why Baum dared not attack him. I've been hesitant to meet Baum because I'm worried that Baum will seal the Holy Grail like Jar and send me to another low-level material plane far away, McKinley explained to Han Shuo. Han Shuo was rather surprised to hear McKinley's explanation. He did not expect that Baum's divine soul would contain a divine seal left behind by the Overgod of Space. It seemed that McKinley was deeply trusted by the Overgod of Space. Having stayed on Elysium for so long, Han Shu naturally knew some of the rumors about the overgods. Once a powerful overgod leaves a divine seal in the divine soul of a follower, he or she would be able to sense the follower's location through a unique method. They would be able to sense the follower's death. As the overgod of space had obtained the quintessence of the Edict of Space, his ability to sense the follower's location should be even more terrifying. However, Han Shuo also knew that only those followers who were highly regarded by the overgods were qualified to receive an overgod's imprint. This was because the imprint was separated from the overgod's body and would consume some of the overgod's divine energy. Gods who were bestowed with an overgod's imprint would be able to cultivate and comprehend that particular energy much faster than ordinary people. Han Shuo did not expect McKinley to be such a prominent figure in the Space Dominion. Han Shuo was rather surprised. After a series of thoughts flashed through his mind, Han Shuo said, "If I were Baum, I definitely wouldn't help you find your divine body and create a huge problem for myself. Is there any other way? I've prepared some conditions. I hope they can move that traitor." McKinley's heart was filled with hatred as he said, "I'm not 100% sure either. Under such circumstances, I have no other choice but to give it a try. I've had enough of the boring days inside the Holy Grail. I don't want to stay in there forever. You should stay in the Holy Grail for the time being. I'll think of a way to help you. I'm with Baum anyway. I'll help you search around Ethereal City. If I can't find anything, I'll try to get information about your divine body from Baum," transmitted Han Shuo to McKinley after he bunched his brows and thought for a moment. "You? What do you have in mind?" McKinley said helplessly. After transmitting the message, McKinley kept silent for a while. Then, as though he suddenly recalled something, he asked, "Oh right. Why are you in Baum's mansion? How did you get to know him? Logically speaking, you shouldn't be in contact with a character of Baum's level, right?" "I had a fight with Baum. He has now treated me as a distinguished guest." Han Shua's lips curled into a smile as he explained to McKinley. What? McKinley's transmission was intermittent. It was obvious that he was very surprised. McKinley took a while to calm himself down. He asked anxiously, "How is it possible for you to fight Baum with your strength? Brian, you're joking, aren't you?" It was no wonder that McKinley would be so surprised. Back when McKinley was on Profound Continent, he had fought with Han Shuo indirectly. He knew that Han Shuo only possessed low-god strength. As a cultivator of the Edict of Space, even though he was sealed inside the Holy Grail, McKinley was still very sensitive to the passage of time. He knew that it had been less than 100 years since then. 100 years might be a long time for an average person, but for a high god like McKinley who had a long lifespan, it was not even worth mentioning. Who could leap from low god to late-stage high god in less than 100 years? To McKinley, this was simply unimaginable. "I did have a fight with Baum. I guess it's a draw." When Han Shuo saw that McKinley's transmission was intermittent, he dared not continue to provoke him. Therefore, he did not mention that it was Baum who gave up on his own accord. "Brian, you aren't joking with me, are you?" McKinley replied after a long while. "I'm not joking." Han Shuo briefly described the fight between him and Baum. He also mentioned the peculiarities of Baum's spacetime barrier and boundary. He believed that McKinley would be able to tell that Han Shuo was telling the truth. After another long period of silence, McKinley's voice became visibly agitated when he transmitted again, "I believe you now. If you had not fought Baum before, you would not have been able to describe the characteristics of the space barrier and the boundary in such a detailed and accurate manner. How is this possible? How could you have become so powerful?" McKinley spoke incoherently for a while before he excitedly said, "Brian, it seems that I really have to rely on you for this. I'm counting on you. If you can find any information about my divine body, I will be sure to thank you properly." "All right, I'll keep an eye on it. Just stay in the Holy Grail with peace of mind." Han Shuo knew that McKinley needed time to digest the shock he had given him. Therefore, he took the initiative to cut off the connection. Although Han Shuo knew about the grudge between McKinley and Baum, it did not affect his current cooperation with Baum. He would still take advantage of Baum as much as he could. He thought that once McKinley found his divine body, he would be able to take over Ethereal City. Wouldn't that be even more beneficial to him? With one thought, Han Shuo sent out a high-level demon general. He planned to keep an eye on Baum and observe him for a while before making any further decisions. Han Shuo was now on guard against Baum. After listening to McKinley's words, Han Shuo felt that Baum was a scheming person. Therefore, he had a different opinion about Baum's friendly offer. Han Shuo vaguely felt that Baum must have some ulterior motives for treating him so kindly. 5 days passed by in the blink of an eye. The high-level demon general that was secretly observing Baum's every move did not discover anything out of the ordinary. Baum had been very busy for the past 5 days. Not only had he sent people to clean up the shops he had selected, he had also made an announcement that the Celestial Pearl Pharmacy would be opening a branch in Ethereal City. He was looking for employees and competent pharmacists to meet Han Shuo at the City Lord's mansion. Baum's actions were not inappropriate at all. However, Han Shuo had a knot in his heart. The more Baum worked so hard for him without asking for anything in return, the more he felt that something was amiss. The demon general that was keeping an eye on Baum did not dare to relax at all. As a spirit demon refined from high god souls, its stealth ability was even more miraculous. Having fought against Baum, Han Shuo knew very well how terrifying Baum was. His demon general always maintained a safe distance of 100 meters from him. Whenever Han Shuo entered an area protected by a space-time boundary, his demon general would stay even further away from Han Shuo, fearing that Baum would detect him. As expected, Ethereal City had no shortage of manpower. Soon after Baum's recruitment notice was sent out, a crowd of excited people swarmed to the City Lord's mansion. To Han Shuo's surprise, there was an endless stream of applicants. Among them, there were many who were truly capable. The few pharmacists who came were all genuine talents. Inside the City Lord's mansion, Han Shuo personally selected the candidates. Given Han Shuo's powerful consciousness, ordinary low gods and mid-gods would not be able to escape Han Shuo's fiery eyes of gold. He would be able to detect those with ulterior motives just by circulating his consciousness. Only those who did not have any ulterior motives were selected. One day, while Han Shuo was still selecting candidates in the City Lord's mansion, an Ethereal City Divine Guard hastily rushed over and asked, "Mr. Brian, there's a man who claims to be your son. He is fighting with someone in the City West. His name is Han Hua. Do you want to go and have a look?" Han Shuo stared blankly for a moment before he came to his senses. He smilingly replied, "What's wrong with these youngsters? They have just arrived in the city and they already want to cause trouble. He actually caused trouble for me. I'll go and take a look." Chapter 8:16. When Han Shuo arrived at the west side of the city and met with Fire Elite Zombie, he discovered that Han Shuo's intelligence had evolved to a whole new level after he left. Han Shuo's quarrel was with a divine weapon shop. After entering Ethereal City, Han Shuo discovered that there were all kinds of shops all over the city. Instead of looking for Han Shuo started roaming around the divine weapon shops. Han Shuo got into a fight with a shopkeeper over the price of some ores. Fire Elite Zombie, who cultivated in the elemental energy of fire, had reached the acme of perfection in the utilization of the energy of fire. There were not many powerful experts in the shop. 5 or 6 shop assistants ganged up on Han Hua, and yet they were all covered with cuts and bruises. If it weren't for the Ethereal City Divine Guards nearby, Han Hua would have burned the shop down. When the Ethereal City Divine Guards learned of Han Shuo's identity and learned that he was Han Shuo's son, they did not dare to act rashly. They immediately dispatched their men to the City Lord's mansion to inform Han Shuo, fearing that attacking Han Shuo would incur Han Shuo's wrath. Those divine guards knew about Han Shuo. From the way the City Lord of Ethereal City treated Han Shuo, they knew that Han Shuo was not a person to be trifled with. On top of that, Han Shuo was a genius pharmacist. Once the Celestial Pearl Pharmacy opened in Ethereal City, they would have to maintain a good relationship with Han Shuo if they wanted to purchase suitable medicines. Therefore, they dared not offend Han Shuo. When Han Shuo and Han Tu arrived at the shop, they discovered that the front door of the shop was charred black. Han Hua was standing at the entrance, glaring at the few shopkeepers. "Father, You have arrived first. Han Hua immediately cheered as soon as Han Shuo appeared. He came over and gave Han Tu a big hug before turning to look at Han Shuo smilingly. What's wrong? Han Shuo was also very happy. However, the ethereal city divine guards around him were wearing awkward faces, and the few shopkeepers were looking at them furiously. Han Shuo felt that it was better to get to the bottom of the situation first. Mr. Brian, your son didn't pay for the things he bought. The divine guard who was in charge of this matter recognized Han Shuo and put on an embarrassed face. Han Shuo was stunned. He looked at Han Hua suspiciously and asked, "You really didn't pay? They're talking nonsense. It's just a fire obsidian. How dare they ask me for 50 black crystal coins? They're clearly trying to rip me off." Xiao Jin said that the fire obsidian is worthless and he can get as many as he wants. I'm already giving them enough face by giving them 5 black crystal coins for such a cheap stone. Han Hua was enraged. He pointed at the few shop assistants and said irritably, "You bastards, do you think I won't tear down your shop? How dare you run a scam in broad daylight? How dare you scam me? You've gone too far. You've gone too far. I'll fight you to the death." A beautiful female shop assistant, who cultivated the power of water, was so angry that her face was red and her body was trembling. It seemed like she was about to charge forward and fight to the death. The shop assistants were also enraged. If they weren't afraid of the ethereal city divine guards, they would have charged at Han Hua and fought him to the death. Don't buy it if you don't have black crystal coins. It's not like we have to sell it to you. You're just robbing us and leaving after paying 5 black crystal coins. Do you think you're in the right? The female shop assistant bared her fangs and brandished her claws at Han Hua. Crazy woman, you're allowed to run a scam, but I'm not allowed to buy anything? Han Hua said disdainfully to the female shop assistant. He put on a disdainful face and said, "What are you shouting for? If you keep shouting, I'll burn you to death." "I'm going to kill you," shrieked the female shop assistant. She broke free from an ethereal city divine guard and charged at Han Hua. "Let's talk this out," the divine guard in charge of the scam shouted. He hastily formed a wind energy barrier to stop the charging female shop assistant. He put on a bitter smile and explained to Han Shuo, "Fire obsidian, no matter where it is sold, will never be sold for less than 45 black crystal coins. There's no problem with this shop's price of 50 black crystal coins. This is not a good deal for us. If Little Gold says it's worthless, then it's worthless. Don't spout nonsense." Han Hua glared at the divine guard and rolled his eyes. He said, "You must be helping them. He paid you, didn't he? Fool, Little Gold never spends money to look for stones. What kind of stone can't he find? If he says it's worthless, then it really is worthless." Han Tu chuckled and teased Han Hua as though he found the scene rather amusing. Metal Elite Zombie possessed extraordinary senses when it came to metal ores. It wouldn't be difficult for him to find the right ores. But for Han Hua to judge the price of an item by his standards, it was, of course, a huge mistake. Han Hua would not have believed the words of others. But after hearing Han Tu's words, he was greatly astonished. He scratched his head and softly cried out, "So that means I've really made a mistake? That woman, forget it. I'll give you this stupid stone. What's so great about it? Go, go, don't bother me." A piece of Firespark stone flew out and accurately landed at the female shop assistant's feet. The Firespark stone that was supposed to be glowing with red light had, for some reason, turned dull and dull. It was grayish-white like any other stone that could be found anywhere. "This isn't a Firespark stone. Who are you trying to fool?" The shop assistants behind Han Hua looked at the Firespark stone beneath their feet and immediately glared at Han Hua in anger. They felt that they had been insulted. Even a blind man could tell that the stone was different from the one before. They felt that Han Hua was purposely making fun of them. It's a Firespark stone, but the energy inside is gone. Suddenly, a skinny old man walked out of the shop. He picked up the ordinary-looking stone and looked at Han Hua in amazement. He asked curiously, "How did you do it?" Even a great alchemist would need the help of a magical matrix to extract the energy inside a Firespark stone. Moreover, it would take at least a few days. But you managed to extract all the energy from the stone in less than 10 minutes. How is this possible? Grandpa Miles, why have you come out? The shop assistants were shocked to see the skinny old man. Their attitudes became respectful. Even the female shop assistant who was baring her fangs and brandishing her claws quietened down. Miles gestured for the shop assistants to quiet down. He looked at Han Hua as though he was waiting for a satisfactory answer. Isn't it just a piece of Firespark stone? It's too easy to extract the energy from it. What's so great about it? Said Han Hua disdainfully. He didn't seem to care about the old man who suddenly appeared. Han Shua observed for a moment and discovered that Miles actually possessed high god strength. Unfortunately, he couldn't tell which of the 12 fundamental forces Miles cultivated. I'll give you another piece of Firespark stone. I won't charge you any black crystal coins. Can you do it for me? Miles put on a faint smile. He took out an even bigger Firespark stone from his space ring and handed it to Han Hua. This old man is quite interesting. Haha, take a good look. Han Hua took the Firespark stone and held it in his palm. Under the attentive gazes of the crowd, the fiery red radiance of the Firespark stone gradually dimmed. In less than a minute, the Firespark stone had lost all its red radiance and turned back into a plain and ordinary stone. This is amazing, Miles softly cried out. He looked at Han Hua in astonishment and said, I didn't expect that you could really do it. Haha, I know many people who cultivate in the energy of fire, but I have never thought that someone could extract energy from a Firespark stone so quickly. The Firespark stone was a type of energy crystal. It was not the kind of divine essence of fire that could be directly absorbed. Even those who cultivated in the energy of fire would not be able to extract energy from a Firespark stone. Miles wasn't the only one who was astonished. The few young clerks and the ethereal city divine guards who were in charge of this were all wearing faces of disbelief. Ordinary cultivators of the energy of fire would not be able to do this. However, Han Hua was different. His entire body was forged from the yuan energy of the place of extreme fire. Back when he was on Profound Continent, the place of extreme fire had formed naturally for tens of thousands of years. He had also obtained the Fire Lotus. Absorbing energy from a Firespark stone was as easy as flipping his palm. Now you have nothing to say, right? Han Hua was immensely proud of himself. He raised his head to the sky and said, If there's nothing else, I'll be leaving. Brat, how long has it been since we last met? Why are you getting so cocky? Han Shua couldn't help but mock Han Hua when he saw Han Hua's arrogant face. Of course not. Father, it's not easy for us to meet again. Let's not waste any more time here. Let's go. Let's leave this shady shop and have a good reunion. Han Hua shrunk his head and hastily tried to curry favor with Han Shua. He was not afraid of anyone except Han Shua. Han Shua threw a bag of black crystal coins that landed right in front of the shop. Han Shua put on a faint smile and said, Here are 1,000 black crystal coins as compensation for the loss of your shop. I hope you don't mind. 1,000 black crystal coins. To Han Shua's surprise, Han Tu and Han Hua shouted in unison. Before Han Shua could react, the two rushed to the shop's entrance and added up the bag of black crystal coins that Han Shua had thrown down. Han Tu grabbed the bag of black crystal coins, took out 100 black crystal coins, and placed them on the ground. He put on a silly smile and said, My father must have taken the wrong bag. 100 black crystal coins is more than enough to compensate for the loss of your shop. Han Shua had clearly said 1,000 black crystal coins. Everyone heard it loud and clear. Han Tu's words were just too shameless. Han Hua hastily nodded and said, It's more than enough. More than enough. Han Hua's eyes widened and he said fiercely, I have already given you face by giving you 100 black crystal coins. Don't be so shameless. The divine guard in charge put on a bitter smile. Han Shua was greatly embarrassed. He did not expect that his two sons would be so stingy as to give such a huge discount on the black crystal coins he had offered. It was beyond Han Shua's expectation. Father, you are too extravagant. Crystal coins are good stuff. You can buy anything in this world. How can you be so wasteful? Han Hua looked at him bitterly and let out a long sigh. If I had enough black crystal coins, I wouldn't have wasted so much time talking with them. You, on the other hand, threw away 1,000 black crystal coins without batting an eyelid. What a good-for-nothing. Han Shuo didn't know whether to laugh or cry when he saw his two stingy sons. To him, a few thousand black crystal coins were nothing. It appeared that although his two sons had made astonishing progress in strength and intelligence, they weren't very good at making money. Chapter 8:17. Father, you have no idea what I have been lacking the most these years is black crystal coins. Ever since I left you, I realized that everything I do in this world requires black crystal coins. Han Hua wore a deeply sentimental look as he complained to Han Shuo about the benefits of crystal coins. It seemed that he was really troubled by the lack of crystal coins. This time, it was Han Tu's turn to nod his head. Like a miser, he clutched the bag of black crystal coins tossed out by Han Shuo tightly, as if he was afraid that someone would snatch it from him. Well, Miles wore a bitter smile as he looked at the wealthy Han Shuo and the stingy Han Tu and Han Hua. He could not understand why a wealthy father like Han Shuo would have two stingy sons. He opened his mouth but did not know what to say. He was very puzzled and curious about the relationship between the three. Han Shuo glared at Han Tu and Han Hua and said angrily, "What a disgrace! It's just crystal coins. I will give you however much you want in the future." Han Shuo turned around and said to Miles with a smile, "My apologies, my apologies. My sons have never seen the world." Han Tu and Han Hua exchanged a glance. Their eyes were filled with excitement as they looked at Han Shuo with silly smiles on their faces. They said in unison, "Father, did you strike it rich? How did you get so many crystal coins? Haha, this is great, this is great. I have never been poor." Han Shuo harumphed and said, "You two brats, let's go. Don't embarrass me here. I will give you however many crystal coins you want when we get back." "This is great." Han Hua cheered. He immediately looked at Miles with disdain and said proudly, "Old man, did you hear that? My father has crystal coins. Don't look down on me in the future." "I didn't." Miles shook his head and forced a smile. He felt very depressed. He thought to himself, "You are the one who took my things like a robber. Why are you making it sound like I am in the wrong? Young Master Han Hua, young Master Han Tu, please give us some face and don't cause too much trouble in the city." The ethereal city divine guard who was in charge of this matter could not stand it any longer. He put on a bitter smile and begged the two, fearing that the two would cause even more trouble in ethereal city. "None of your business." Han Hua rolled his eyes at him and said carelessly, "You are all in cahoots with each other. Do you think I can't tell?" You? The divine guard was completely speechless. Seeing that he couldn't get through to Han Shuo, he could only look at Han Shuo helplessly. Before Han Shuo could speak, the old man called Miles stared blankly, as though recalling something. He looked at the Earth Elite Zombie and Fire Elite Zombie in amazement and asked, "You? What are your names?" "I am Han Hua. Is there a problem?" The Fire Elite Zombie turned fierce again and shouted, "Old man, don't be unappreciative. I've already given you 100 black crystal coins. What more do you want? If you piss me off, I'll really burn your shop down. Go ahead and burn it down. If you burn this shop down, someone will come after you." Miles suddenly burst into laughter. He seemed rather happy and looked at Han Hua with great interest. He didn't seem to be worried at all. "Old fart, you're asking for trouble, aren't you?" Han Hua stared blankly for a moment. He turned to look at Han Shuo and gestured that it wasn't his fault. He said, "Father, as you can see, he's the one who is looking for trouble. Haha, if you burn this shop down, you will be the one suffering the loss. By that time, you won't have the guts to fight back even if the person who comes after you hits you." Miles wasn't the least bit fearless. He stared at Han Hua with great interest. "Grandpa Miles, are you sick?" The few shop assistants were stunned. They felt that Miles was acting rather abnormally today. "Who is so powerful that I won't have the guts to fight back after hitting me? Other than my father, whoever hits me, I will return the favor tenfold. Han Hua was truly enraged by Miles. He wore a face that seemed as though he wanted to see the world plunged into chaos. Miles ignored the astonished shop assistants. Under Han Hua's furious stare, he pointed at the shop's name and smilingly said, "I'm not the owner of this shop. I'm only in charge of managing it. Take a look. What's the name of this shop?" "Goldstone. Is there a problem?" Han Hua groaned. Energy Goldstone shops are not only located in Ethereal City, but also in the Fire Dominion, Life Dominion, Destiny Dominion, Wind Dominion, Earth Dominion, and Lightning Dominion, explained the Divine Guard, who was provoked by Han Hua in a deep voice. "So what?" Han Hua wasn't afraid in the slightest. He did not look at the Divine Guard but stared at Miles. "Nothing. Haha, it's just that my master's name also has the word Han in it," said Miles smilingly. But when he said that, his eyes turned to Han Shua. He seemed to be even more curious about Han Shua. Han Shua's eyes turned serious and he softly asked, "What's his name?" "My master's name is Han Jin." Miles laughed heartily. After taking a short pause, Miles stopped smiling and said in a low voice, "Not many people know this name, but I believe you all should be familiar with it, right?" Han Hua and Han Tu exchanged glances with each other. They were dumbfounded. After a long while, Han Hua shouted, "Little Gold, that brat. So it's him. Haha, this brat. Haha, no wonder." Han Hua's anger was instantly extinguished. He walked over and patted on Miles' shoulder in a friendly manner. He smilingly said, "I was wondering why I found you so pleasing to the eye. So you are one of us." Miles put on a wry smile. He thought, "Since when did you find me pleasing to the eye? Weren't you planning to burn down the shop? Little Gold is really something. He even has his own shop." "Haha, if I knew that he is the owner of Goldstone, I would have asked him for crystal coins long ago." Han Tu scratched his head and put on a regretful face. There were Goldstone energy shops in the Earth Dominion, but he did not expect that the owner of the shop would be Metal Elite Zombie. "My master has instructed that those whose names start with the word Han, namely Han Shua, Han Tu, Han Mu, Han Hua, Han Shui, and Han Hao, are free of charge as long as they come to the shop. You can have as many crystal coins as you want." Miles chuckled and explained, "Would you like to come in and have a private chat?" Han Shua too was astonished. He did not expect that the owner of the shop would be Metal Elite Zombie. From the Divine Guard's tone, it seemed that Goldstone was not only a branch in Ethereal City, but was also doing very well in other dominions. It seemed that this youngster was much more promising than the others. But after giving it some thought, Han Shua felt that it wasn't that hard to understand. Given Metal Elite Zombie's marvelous ability to detect ores, as long as there were ores on Elysium, it wouldn't be difficult for him to locate them as long as he had the time. Ordinary people would have to excavate for years, or even decades, to find energy ores in some famous mountains and rivers. But Metal Elite Zombie, on the other hand, would know what kind of energy ores were produced in those mountains and rivers. With Metal Elite Zombie's marvelous ability, it was only natural that his shop would have energy ores that ordinary shops could not. With such a unique advantage, it would be a wonder if the shop didn't flourish. Having stayed in the City of Shadows for such a long time, Han Shua was very proud of his Celestial Pearl Pharmacy. But when he compared it to Metal Elite Zombie's Goldstone and Energy Stone shops all over the Divine Dominions, Han Shua suddenly felt that his son had surpassed his master. "Come, let's talk inside," said Han Shua smilingly. He nodded at Miles and entered Goldstone. At the same time, in a vast forest outside Ethereal City, a battle was going on. A group of cold-looking gods emanating the aura of death were attacking a small family clan. They were obviously god hunters, and all of them cultivated in the energy of death. Each and every one of them was ferocious and valiant. They worked in perfect coordination with each other and seemed to know some kind of marvelous formation. Under their attacks, the members of this small family that came to Ethereal City were killed one after another. Their valuables were all plundered. Those who cultivated the energy of death had their divine energy of death devoured, and their life force was drained away bit by bit. "Your family clan has besieged us so many times. You didn't expect such an outcome," did you?" said a one-eyed god hunter whose face was covered in scars as he stared coldly at the last late-stage mid-god. "I didn't expect that you would become so powerful, but it is only a matter of time before you all die in the hands of our patriarchs. That leader of yours is dead for sure." This person was a tough character. He was not afraid even though he knew that he was going to die. He suddenly shouted, "Let's die together." It seemed that he had prepared a means to take his enemies down with him. A 3-meter-long bone spear suddenly streaked across the sky. Wherever the bone spear passed, all the element of death in its path would be sucked dry. Before the last patriarch could use any means to take his enemies down with him, the bone spear had nailed him to the ground and killed him instantly. This patriarch possessed late-stage mid-god strength, but he was instantly killed by a bone spear that came out of nowhere. It was obvious that the attacker's strength far exceeded his. A youngster wearing a tranquil face walked towards him unhurriedly. His eyes were sinister and cold. The 7 snow-white bone spurs on his back looked as though they were inserted into his body. His entire body was emitting an intense, domineering aura. He extended his hand and moved his fingers. The 3-meter-long bone spear flew back to him and landed accurately in his jade-white palm. The youngster bunched his brows and said in a deep voice, "Next time, don't talk nonsense. Just kill." When the god hunters in the surroundings saw the young man, they respectfully bowed and saluted him. The one-eyed god hunter with a face full of scars looked at the young man with reverence and lowered his head as he said, "Yes, chief." The youngster nodded and instructed, "Stay in the vicinity and move about freely. I am going to Ethereal City. Without my command, do not step into Ethereal City." "Chief, when will you be back?" the one-eyed god hunter asked cautiously. "I don't know. Be careful while I'm away. Without me, do not touch any party with high gods," said the youngster in a cold and indifferent face. He left the group of fiendish gods and headed for Ethereal City alone. Miles bowed at Han Shuo and explained, "It's just that the name Master gave you was Han Shuo. After you arrived in Ethereal City, you did not use that name. Therefore, we did not know that you were the owner of the Celestial Pearl Pharmacy." "You know who I am?" Han Shuo looked at Miles with furrowed brows. Miles nodded smilingly and said, "You are Master's father." "Haha, of course I know who you are." After hearing Miles' words, Han Shuo was certain that Miles was Metal Elite Zombie's trusted aide. Otherwise, Miles wouldn't know so many things and Metal Elite Zombie wouldn't have entrusted so many ores to Miles. Han Shuo then asked, "Where is he now?" Metal Elite Zombie had arranged everything in Ethereal City. Naturally, he knew that Han Shuo would be arriving at Ethereal City at the appointed time. Master should be on his way here. It won't be long before he arrives at Ethereal City. Just as Han Shuo expected, Miles replied smilingly. After taking a short pause, Miles nervously asked, "May I know what instructions do you have for me?" "You can take everything in Goldstone. If you need crystal coins, I can prepare a few million for you." Han Shuo shook his head smilingly and said, "Everything here is fine. Just do as I have always done. For the time being, I don't need you to do anything for me. Besides, I don't lack crystal coins." "All right then. You can continue the discussion after Master returns." Ever since Miles learned that Han Shuo was the owner of Celestial Pearl Pharmacy, he knew that Han Shuo wouldn't lack crystal coins. I do need some of the ores in your shop." After thinking for a moment, Han Shuo put on a faint smile. The variety of ores in Goldstone was more abundant than any other shop. Han Shuo had noticed quite a few extremely rare refining materials. Since the shop belonged to Metal Elite Zombie, Han Shuo didn't mind. As long as the shop has it, feel free to take it. As Hanjin's trusted aide, Miles, of course, knew about the relationship between Hanjin and Han Shuo. In addition to the fact that he had been instructed to do so in advance, Han Shuo readily agreed. Han Shuo had no qualms about taking all the items that belonged to Metal Elite Zombie. Without saying anything else to Miles, he first picked out some ores and divine essences that caught his fancy. After that, he left Han Hua and Han Tu and went outside with Miles to pick out a few dozen more bizarre ores. After everything was done, Han Hua and Han Tu waited for a while before they walked out from the secret warehouse. The two wore satisfied faces as they constantly stroked the space rings on their fingers. They reckoned that all the ores suitable for them in the secret warehouse had been stored away by them. All right, we will take our leave first. We will tell him what happened today when he returns. Han Hua and Han Tu said their goodbyes. After Han Hua and Han Tu walked out of the secret warehouse, Han Shua smiled and bade farewell to Miles. "Don't worry, I will report what happened today to Master," said Miles as he bowed and sent off Han Shua and the other two. "Grandpa Miles, who are they? I saw them taking a lot of things, but they didn't pay a single black crystal coin. Who are they?" After Han Shua and the other two left, the female shop assistant, who nearly got into a fight with Han Hua, asked with a bitter face. Not just her, the other shop assistants in Goldstone were also puzzled. They had seen with their own eyes how Han Shua swept through every counter and put all kinds of ores into his space ring. Not only did Han Shua not pay a single crystal coin after the transaction, he even acted as though it was only natural for him to do so. Even Miles had to bow to him. Everything that happened was beyond their understanding. The small shop assistants didn't know about the existence of the Metal Elite Zombie. Only the core members of the Goldstone store knew that the Metal Elite Zombie was the true owner of the Goldstone store. Those who knew about the relationship between the Metal Elite Zombie and Han Shua were few and far in between. It was normal that they didn't know. In a solemn face, Miles said to the few in a deep voice, "Remember, do not tell anyone about what happened today. Do not know anything that you are not supposed to know. If one day you are able to gain Master's trust and become a supervisor of one of the dominions of Goldstone, you will have the opportunity to learn these secrets." Miles scanned the young shop assistants with his eyes. He lightly groaned and said, "If I find out that any one of you has leaked what happened today, don't blame me for being impolite. All right, do what you need to do." The shop assistants were all shocked. They all knew that Miles rarely treated them so seriously, and they knew that the identities of those people must be extraordinary. One by one, they obediently agreed and continued to stand at their respective counters in silence, not daring to continue asking questions. Inside the City Lord's mansion, City Lord Baum slightly bunched his brows as he listened to the report from the Divine Guard in Goldstone. His face was filled with bewilderment. "You are saying that Han Hua is also his son?" asked Baum puzzledly when the Divine Guard was halfway through his report. Just like Han Tu, Han Hua was quite a notorious character in the Fire Dominion. Han Hua had a fiery temper and would often get into fights with people over the slightest disagreement. He had offended quite a few people in the Fire Dominion. His mastery of the energy of fire had reached the acme of perfection. With the Fire Lotus in hand, he was not afraid of challenging opponents of higher realms. He was quite famous among the youngsters in the Fire Dominion. To Baum, it was already rather surprising that Earth Elite Zombie Han Tu was Han Shua's son. He was even more astonished to learn that Han Hua of the Fire Dominion was Han Shua's son. Baum grew more and more curious about Han Shua. He wondered what this person was up to in Ethereal City. The Divine Guard nodded and respectfully said, "Not only that, even the owner of Goldstone seems to have a close relationship with Han Shua. Goldstone is the largest energy stone shop in Ethereal City. They have branches in every dominion. Their influence is even greater than his Celestial Pearl Pharmacy." However, when the owner of Goldstone heard Han Shua's name, his attitude immediately changed. What? Baum was even more astonished. He could accept Han Tu and Han Hua's relationship with Han Shua, but this matter was rather frightening. Although Earth Elite Zombie and Fire Elite Zombie possessed decent strength and some marvelous abilities, they were just two people. They were not high gods. No matter how powerful they were, Baum would not give a damn about them. But Goldstone was a different story. The Goldstone shops that could be found in every dominion were extremely wealthy, and their owners were mysterious and unfathomable. For Han Shua to have such a close relationship with such a person, Baum started to feel terrified. Han Shua wondered if it was the right decision to invite this person to stay in Ethereal City. Baum was a little uncertain. After thinking for a moment, he instructed the Divine Guard, Keep a close eye on that goldstone shop. Try to find out what those clerks are talking about after they enter the shop. My lord, should we keep an eye on Brian and the others? The divine guard bowed and asked. Baum shook his head, put on a somewhat grave face, and said, "He is not someone you should get close to. Don't worry about him, and don't send anyone to keep an eye on him. I have my own plans." "Yes, my lord." The divine guard immediately dismissed himself and was about to send someone to Goldstone Pharmacy to ask about the situation. After the divine guard left, Baum bunched his brows and muttered to himself, "Brian. Oh, Brian. What are you up to in Ethereal City?" Baum did not notice that Han Shua was perched on a large tree 100 meters away from him and had been observing him day and night. Chapter 819. 10 days passed in the blink of an eye. During this period of time, Han Shua had recruited a sufficient number of employees and pharmacists. The Celestial Pearl Pharmacy branch that Baum had prepared for him had also been renovated. With that, Han Shua no longer stayed in the City Lord's mansion, but moved to the Celestial Pearl Pharmacy branch in Ethereal City. From the conversation he overheard from the demon generals, Han Shua was certain that Baum had ulterior motives towards him and that Baum would not be wholeheartedly helping him. This indirectly proved that McKinley's guess was right. Baum was a scheming person and would not be easy to deal with. After that, Han Shua's demon generals never left Baum's side. However, they did not discover anything out of the ordinary. Baum had been cultivating in the City Lord's mansion for the past 10 days and had not seen anyone. Han Shua's demon generals roamed around the City Lord's mansion for a few days. He wanted to find McKinley's divine body, but there was not a single place in the mansion that he could hide his divine body. The demon generals had searched every corner of the mansion, but did not find anything out of place. Han Shua had no choice but to give the matter further thought. As Baum had sent that divine guard to Goldstone to scout out the situation, Han Shua had secretly sent a demon general over just in case. After observing for a while, Han Shua discovered that the employees of Goldstone seemed to have been instructed by Miles to keep their mouths shut. The Ethereal City Divine Guards did not learn anything useful about what happened between Han Shua and Miles in the shop. Han Shua felt that Metal Elite Zombie was the most adept at management among the little fellas. Han Shua had never seen anyone cultivating in the energy of metal at this time. Although it might not be easy for Metal Elite Zombie to make rapid progress in his cultivation, the fact that Metal Elite Zombie was adept at using his innate divine abilities proved to be the greatest help to Han Shua. Goldstone shops could be found all over the Divine Dominions. As long as he made good use of them, Han Shua would be able to learn about the situation in every Divine Dominions. At present, Han Shua was very much looking forward to meeting Metal Elite Zombie and having a good discussion about Goldstone Shop. It would be very beneficial to the Celestial Pearl Pharmacy's future development. With Baum's deliberate promotion, all the gods in every region of Ethereal City learned about the Celestial Pearl Pharmacy's branch in the city. Before the Celestial Pearl Pharmacy was officially opened, many gods came to Han Shua's door to purchase the medicines refined by him. From the City of Shadows to Ethereal City, Han Shua had passed by many famous mountains and great rivers. He had collected all kinds of medicinal herbs and refined them into a space ring. Of all kinds of medicines, Han Shua did not wait for too long. After all the employees had arrived, the pharmacist he recruited started refining some commonly used medicines according to Han Shua's instructions. Celestial Pearl Pharmacy officially opened for business in Ethereal City. After that, Han Shua took out 1,000 bottles of medicinal pills he refined and put them on display. Of Goldstone of the morning, of Han Shua of business. On the first day of business, an endless stream of people bought all the medicinal pills refined by Han Shua. In total, Han Shua received about 70,000 black crystal coins. Those gods who bought the medicinal pills refined by Han Shua immediately realized the benefits of the new medicine. Without any prompting from Han Shua, they helped Han Shua promote the Celestial Pearl Pharmacy for free. For a short while, everyone in Ethereal City was talking about the miracles of the Celestial Pearl Pharmacy. After a good start, Han Shua took out a portion of his medicines and put them on sale. In just a few days, the entrance of the Celestial Pearl Pharmacy would be packed with people. Gods from every street block in Ethereal City would flock to Han Shua's pharmacy. They would not hesitate to spend black crystal coins to buy the medicines refined by Han Shua. Every person who bought the medicines would consciously become a promoter of the pharmacy. The topic of the Celestial Pearl Pharmacy gradually became the main topic of conversation in Ethereal City. Han Shua, the owner of the Celestial Pearl Pharmacy, also rapidly became famous in Ethereal City. At first, there were those who coveted Han Shua's medicines and tried to force him to sell them. Han Shua would only need to give Rose a meaningful glance, and they would be thrown out of the Celestial Pearl Pharmacy by Rose. Those who tried to sneak in at night would be killed as soon as they were discovered. It was only after a few groups of people they sent went missing that they realized that the Celestial Pearl Pharmacy was not as simple as a pharmacy. After that, no one dared to look down on the Celestial Pearl Pharmacy or treat them in an unruly manner. When everything was on the right track, just like in the City of Shadows, Han Shua announced that he would only sell the medicines he refined after a certain period of time. Although the crowd couldn't help but sigh, the Celestial Pearl Pharmacy's reputation had grown. Even without the medicines refined by Han Shua, the pharmacy's business was much better than other pharmacies. Time flew by. In the blink of an eye, more than half a month had passed. The Celestial Pearl Pharmacy had gradually gained a foothold in Ethereal City. However, Little Skull, Wood Elite Zombie, Water Elite Zombie, and Metal Elite Zombie were nowhere to be seen. This made Han Shua rather worried. He personally went to Goldstone Market twice and asked Miles. He was told that Metal Elite Zombie was still on his way to Ethereal City. After counting the days, it would be half a year before the appointed time. And half a year was such a short period of time for them. Han Shua started to worry. He wondered if something had happened to those people. It was only now that Han Shua was slowly becoming aware of what it was like to be a father. He finally realized that it wasn't easy being a father. That feeling of longing for his child made him feel very uncomfortable. Han Shua had been restless recently. He wanted to go out and look for his child, but he didn't know where to start. "Don't worry, father. They will be fine." Han too comforted when he saw that Han Shua was feeling rather vexed. As they were connected to Han Shua's mind, they could sense the source of Han Shua's worries. Nothing will happen to them, right? Han Shua's brows were bunched tightly, and he kept asking himself, "Don't worry. Little Gold is on his way here. Little Wood and Little Water should be doing the same. As for Big Brother, I'm sure nothing will happen to him. He's the best," said Han Hua in a carefree manner. The big brother he mentioned was none other than Little Skull. As Little Skull was the first to be refined by Han Shua, it was Little Skull who brought the 5 to Han Shua. To the 5 elite zombies, Little Skull was without a doubt the leader. "I hope they are all right," Han Shua sighed. Han Shua let out a long sigh and instructed, "Be careful tonight. I'm going to the City Lord's mansion. I don't know why Baum has invited me." "Don't worry. We have killed so many ambushers recently that they are afraid of us. There shouldn't be anyone who dares to cause trouble," replied Han Hua in an indifferent manner. He did not give a damn about the ambushers at all. When Rose saw that Han Shua was looking at her deeply, she indifferently nodded and softly said, "I'll be fine here, right?" Han Shua was slightly relieved after hearing Rose's words. He instructed Han too, "Be careful. If you run into an enemy you can't defend against, just take Rose and Little Hua and escape by yourselves. As for the clerks and pharmacists, bring them along if you can. It doesn't matter if you can't. They are not important to me." "Got it, father. You are so long-winded." Han too chuckled. It was obvious that he did not take Han Shua's words to heart. He believed that no one would dare to come to their deaths. Han Shua could not help but laugh after hearing Han Tu's words. He too felt that he had become more and more long-winded. Han Shua was always worried about Han Tu and Han Hua. He would take great pains to tell them all sorts of nonsense, especially when it came to Fire Elite Zombie. Han Shua would constantly remind Fire Elite Zombie to be more careful and not to provoke any enemies that he could not defeat at the moment. Han Shua couldn't help but smile wryly in his heart when he saw that the two brats did not take his words to heart. However, After thinking for a moment and realizing that there had been no more ambushers in the near future, Han Shuo did not continue to nag and headed to the city lord's mansion where Baum was. Not long after Han Shuo left, night fell. The clerks and pharmacists of the Celestial Pearl Pharmacy went back to their rooms to rest. The Celestial Pearl Pharmacy was remodeled from a small manor. At the front of the building was a shop that sold all kinds of medicines. Behind it were houses for the clerks and pharmacists to refine medicines. The main warehouse was in a separate building. It was protected by boundaries deployed by Han Shuo and Rose. The clerks and pharmacists of the Celestial Pearl Pharmacy had gotten used to the strange noises coming from the shop at night. They felt rather uneasy at first, but after a while, when they discovered that they were unharmed and that the screams were coming from strangers, they gradually realized that the Celestial Pearl Pharmacy was not as simple as it seemed. That night, as usual, the clerks and pharmacists refined medicines. They did not pay any attention to the strange noises coming from the shop. Rose, who was in the gymnasium, suddenly bunched her brows. She stood up from her meditative state and was about to look for Han Tu and Han Hua when she discovered that the two were sneaking towards her. Han Tu came to Rose's side and softly said, "There's an enemy. This time, it's a little unusual. There seems to be a high god among them." "Goddamn, there's definitely something wrong with that Baum. Father has been in the shop for so long and nothing happened to him. But as soon as he left, the enemy came knocking. What a coincidence," cursed Han Hua in a low voice. "You two be careful. If there's any danger, don't worry about me. Just leave on your own." Rose knew that Han Tu had the ability to burrow into the earth. Therefore, she wasn't too worried. She knew that Han Shuo loved the two very dearly and would never allow anything to happen to them. "What are you worried about, woman? Didn't my father say it before he left? If there's any danger that we can't handle, the three of us will just leave together. Those clerks and pharmacists are everywhere. It doesn't matter if they die," replied Han Tuesday. "That's right. You are my father's woman. How can anything happen to you? If you're not around, who's going to sleep with my father?" said Han Hua in a mischievous smile. Rose was greatly embarrassed by the words of the two clowns. She had an impulse to beat the two up. With that, even Rose, who was initially nervous, suddenly relaxed. When Han Tu and Han Jin saw the strange look on Rose's face, they put on a strange smile and started teasing Rose. They were not the least bit afraid of the mighty high god. Chapter 820. The clerks and pharmacists in the store had no idea what was going on around them. But Rose, Han Tu, and Han Hua did not dare to let their guard down for even a second. They quietly observed the situation inside and outside the store from the top floor of the warehouse. Rose suddenly had a strange feeling. She did not feel anything when Han Shuo was always by her side. She never worried about the enemies that came to her. It was as though as long as Han Shuo was in the store, no enemy, no matter how powerful, would pose any threat to her. But since Han Shuo wasn't in the shop tonight, Rose couldn't help but feel a little uneasy when she had to take care of everything. Rose was shocked. She knew that she had unknowingly gotten used to relying on Han Shuo. As long as Han Shuo was by her side, she felt that there was nothing to worry about. But when Han Shuo was not around, she felt that she had to take the leadership role. Rose smiled bitterly in her mind. She temporarily threw away her messy thoughts and focused her attention on the shadows of the buildings outside the store. She was quietly sensing the strength and number of the attackers. During this period of time, Rose had gotten used to facing these intruders with ulterior motives in the middle of the night. Starting from the first batch of intruders, the strength and number of the intruders had been continuously increasing. It was only after a high god was killed that the intruders suddenly vanished. For a very long time, no one dared to attack again recklessly. Rose had thought that the intruders had been intimidated and would never come to the store again. She did not expect that they would show up again tonight. Moreover, the attackers were led by a mid-level high god. It was obvious that they were going to face another fierce battle. The leader of the group is a mid-stage high god. I can faintly sense that he cultivates in the energy of lightning. I'll stop that guy. I'll leave the rest to you. He's not here this time, so don't make any mistakes," Rose reminded Han Tu and Han Hua with a slight frown on her face. Don't worry. Don't worry. If we can beat them, we'll fight them. If we can't, we'll just run. It's no big deal, replied Han Tu smilingly. He did not take the ambushers seriously. Han Hua nodded and wore a nonchalant face. He believed that with Han Tu around, they would be able to escape with ease. Therefore, he was not worried. Rose cursed in her heart when she saw that the two did not seem to care. She did not say anything else and calmly sensed for any movement in the dark. The dark street was shrouded in a gray mist. Gradually, the intruders who had been hiding in the dark for some time approached the store. They flew towards the warehouse where Rose, Han Shua, and Han Shua were hiding. The warehouse was used to store all kinds of medicines. They believed that all the medicines Han Shua personally refined were stored in the warehouse. Moreover, these people had also sensed the presence of Rose and the other two. They knew that they had to go through Rose and the other two in order to obtain the special medicines from Celestial Pearl. Who's there? Without waiting for the shadows to approach, Lolth let out a low growl. The moment her voice left her mouth, Lolth had already launched her attack. Darkness divine power flew out, gathering the element of darkness in the night to form clusters of ink-like clouds. The clusters of thick black clouds emanated traces of darkness that gradually spread out into the darkness of the night. With the warehouse as the center, the sky seemed to be dyed with ink. The dim glimmer was swallowed up bit by bit, and the entire area was plunged into absolute darkness in a few seconds. The wisps of divine power of darkness were like a trickle of water, gently spreading outwards at a steady pace. Before the first few intruders could even get close to the warehouse, they suddenly felt as though their bodies were filled with lead. The wisps of darkness divine energy seeped into their divine bodies. Although it was not enough to kill them immediately, the wisps of darkness divine energy disrupted the normal circulation of their divine bodies. They suddenly slowed down. Those who did not cultivate in the energy of darkness had completely lost their vision. They moved forward as though they were blind. They were all on high alert, fearing that they would be ambushed under such circumstances. How could Han Tu and Han Hua let go of this golden opportunity to launch a sneak attack? While Rose was affecting the intruders with her energy of darkness, Han Tu and Han Hua quietly approached the intruders. Just like Han Shua, the two little fellas refined by Han Shua using a special method were not affected by the boundless darkness. They did not even need to use their vision. They could launch sneak attacks just by sensing the aura of life in the vicinity. In the absolute darkness, groans of pain suddenly sounded. Those who were ambushed by Han Tu and Han Hua did not dare to shout too loudly. They hastily retreated. Two of them who did not manage to dodge in time were killed on the spot by Han Tu and Han Hua. Those who were planning to launch a sneak attack under the cover of darkness did not expect that they would be affected by Rose's darkness divine energy and become the unlucky ones who were ambushed. Come back. Just as Han Tu and Han Hua were quietly launching sneak attacks, a middle-aged man suddenly shouted from the dark. As soon as his voice rang out, all the Dark Knight guests retreated and quickly walked out of Loltha's domain of endless darkness. A tall, broad-shouldered man appeared. A crude grayish-white mask covered his entire face, revealing only a pair of bright eyes. He did not expect that there would be an expert as strong as Rose in the shop other than Han Shua. After dismissing his subordinates who were also wearing strange masks, he immediately turned to look at Rose, who was disappearing from the dark cloud. To maintain the boundless darkness, Rose had to consume a lot of her divine energy. Seeing that the intruders had retreated, she did not continue to cast the boundless darkness around her to exhaust her divine energy. She looked at the intruders indifferently and shouted coldly, "I don't care who you are. Leave now. This is no longer a simple robbery. Last time, my brother was killed. Today, all of you will die," said the grayish-white masked intruder in a deep voice. His tone was filled with resentment. Rose's heart sank when she heard those words. She knew that this matter would not end peacefully. If it was just a simple robbery of the shop's potions, she might have retreated because of her strength. But since the intruder's brother was killed, this battle would not end until he was dead. With Han Shua not around, Rose was not confident that she could protect the entire shop against such an expert and a large group of ferocious mid-gods. If the intruder was willing to leave, Rose would let him go. But if he was determined to fight, Rose would have no choice but to go all out. Who is your brother? Recently, too many people have died in our shop. Serves them right. Even though Han Hua was facing an expert with high god strength, he showed no fear and even took the initiative to provoke the intruder. The early-stage high god who died here 10 days ago was my brother. The intruder waved his hand and gestured for the intruders to disperse before he walked towards Rose. Oh, so it's that idiot. Hee. Why didn't he run when he was crippled? Serves him right. Han Hua looked askance at the intruder and laughed. Kill. He roared and charged at Han Hua. A thick lightning dragon shot out from his palm. As soon as the lightning dragon formed from pure lightning bolts appeared, he released his domain of divinity. Tiny lightning bolts twisted and wriggled in the air like tiny snakes. Damn it, why are you looking for me? Cursed Han Hua. He hastily flew towards Rose. Although Han Hua was hot-tempered and reckless, he was no fool. When he provoked the intruder, he was prepared to flee at any moment. As soon as he saw that the intruder was about to attack, he immediately turned tail and ran. Rose no longer hesitated when she saw that Han Hua was about to attack. Like a dark phantom, she descended from the top floor of the warehouse. Before she arrived, clouds of dense dark aura engulfed the high god of lightning. As mid-stage high gods, the two fought with all their might. Their battle was in full swing, and they had no time to pay attention to anything else. Han Hua and Han Tu ran far away from the battle between the two and engaged in battle with the other attackers. Although the two of them only possessed mid-stage mid-god strength, their understanding of the elemental energy of fire and earth far surpassed that of ordinary gods. Even though they were facing a dozen or so attackers who were a realm higher than them, the two of them showed no signs of being defeated. Instead, they were putting up a good fight. Han Hua unleashed a fire lotus. His body was enveloped by the petals of the fire lotus. His entire body was as red as a soldering iron and emitted an astonishing amount of heat. Han Hua, who was covered by the fire lotuses, felt a sense of defeat. None of the attackers dared to attack Han Hua with their bodies. All they could do was to use their divine weapons to attack Han Hua from a distance. They were unable to cause any substantial damage to Han Hua. Earth Elite Zombie, on the other hand, made them feel even more helpless. After he landed on the ground, he vanished from their sight. Following that, a pair of hands would suddenly reach out from every spot on the ground. A mound would burst out from the ground, and an earth spike would shoot out from the ground, annoying them to no end. They could not find any trace of Han Tu, so they could only passively defend themselves. The attackers were extremely frustrated by Han Hua and Han Tu's endless attacks. They couldn't even touch Han Hua and couldn't attack him while Han Tu was tunneling through the ground. How were they supposed to attack him when they couldn't even see him? Fool, come at me. Come at me. Han Hua laughed heartily as he flew back and forth among the attackers. He would throw fireballs left and right, and from time to time, he would blow out a mouthful of fireballs to incinerate the hair and clothes of the attackers. He would also curse their female relatives. Hiss, hiss. Suddenly, an ice arrow appeared out of nowhere and struck Han Hua's back. It was obvious that the arrow came from a high god. Han Hua, who was still proudly bragging, suddenly staggered. The cold air rushed into his body and caused him to shiver. His body was in so much pain that he could no longer greet others with profanity. Chapter 821. It was only after the ice arrow was shot that the attacker gradually revealed himself from the corner. He had a plain face, a tall and skinny body, and a pair of cold and emotionless eyes. He silently stared at Han Hua, who was struck by the ice arrow, and did not take any further action. His face was as flat as a wooden board. There were no bumps or bumps. There was not even a trace of a nose or lips. He was either extremely ugly, or he had deliberately disguised his face. In short, it was definitely not a face that an ordinary person should have. What the F***? It took Han Hua a moment to recover. By then, Han Tu had stopped attacking the surrounding enemies. He had dragged Han Hua deep into the ground. The attacker who cultivated in the energy of water possessed early-stage high god strength. Han Tu knew the gap between a high god and a mid-god. Therefore, he did not dare to attack recklessly. He immediately went forward and grabbed Han Hua, intending to escape. Where's that woman? If it were any other mid-god, their divine body would have been frozen stiff after taking such an attack. Even if they didn't die, they would be immobilized by the ice. However, Han Hua was a special case. The fire lotus covering his body was a treasure that was nurtured in the place of extreme fire for tens of thousands of years. It had neutralized more than half of the frost divine energy. Not only could he speak, but his body had also returned to normal after a short while. "Let's wait for her to come down," said Han Tuesday. He pulled Han Hua deep into the ground. It was as though the two had melted into the earth and disappeared. While the attackers were cursing and swearing, Han Tu and Han Hua stealthily emerged from another area. They shouted at Rose, who was fighting in midair. "That woman? Hurry up and leave. Don't dawdle." Lolth was obviously distracted by the two men's shouts, allowing the lightning elemental to gain the upper hand. A few snake-like bolts of lightning landed on Lolth's body, causing her long hair to stand up straight. It was a very strange sight. The person who trained in the power of lightning was in the same realm as her, and was even slightly more powerful than her. As soon as the person seized the initiative, the sky was filled with lightning bolts that resembled a long dragon, twisting and wriggling towards Lolth. All of them blocked Lolth's feet as she flew towards the ground, preventing her from landing on the ground. At the same time, the other high god who had silently arrived gave up on attacking Han Tu and Han Hua and suddenly shot towards Rose. It seemed that he knew that Han Tu and Han Hua were deep underground and that it was unrealistic to kill them. Therefore, he turned his attention to Rose, who was the strongest among them and couldn't fly to the ground. "What should we do?" Han Hua asked Han Tu anxiously when he saw that Rose was about to be surrounded by the two. "I don't know either. Should I save her?" Han Tu was in a dilemma. He was much calmer than Han Hua. He knew that he and Han Hua could not handle a high god for the time being. It was just that the 5 elite zombies still had the penta-elemental undead formation that could be deployed by fusing their energies. However, Han Tu did not have absolute confidence that he could succeed. He was worried that if the penta-elemental undead formation was deployed, he and Han Hua would be trapped in it. "You two, run. Don't worry about me." While Han Tu and Han Hua were hesitating, Rose suddenly shrieked. A white, icy aura suddenly shot towards her. Rose, who was concentrating on dealing with the high god who cultivated in the energy of lightning, did not manage to evade the attack. She took a solid hit on her back. "Damn it, I'm going all out." Han Hua immediately stopped hesitating when he saw that Rose was still asking them to leave. Regardless of what Han Tu was thinking, Han Hua shouted as he charged forward. "You despicable bastard! Do you only know how to sneak up on me? Come and fight me if you have the guts. You motherfucker." Han Tu let out a soft sigh when he saw Han Hua flying out of the ground while cursing. For the first time since the battle began, he emerged from the ground and flew towards Han Hua at an even greater speed. Han Tu was much calmer than Han Hua. If he wasn't completely confident that he could escape, he would abandon Rose. However, he would not leave Han Hua to bear the risk. Therefore, Han Hua had no choice but to move. As soon as Han Tu flew out of the ground, mounds started flying out of the ground. As they flew towards Han Hua shouted, "Little Hua, activate the formation." Han Hua stared blankly for a moment before he laughed mischievously, as though he had just remembered that he could join forces with Han Tuesday. The mounds rose into the sky like earthen dragons. Large clusters of flames flew towards the mounds. Only unique life forms like them could fuse with the elemental energies of the 5 elements. When the flames landed on the mounds, they magically sank into the mounds. The yellowish mounds suddenly turned red as though they were made of soldering iron. They burst into raging flames and charged towards the high god who cultivated in the energy of water. The yuan energy of earth and the yuan energy of fire fused perfectly on the mounds. The mounds were baked until they were as hard as the toughest iron and stone. Moreover, they were constantly emitting an astonishing amount of heat. Even a high god cultivating in the energy of water wouldn't be able to escape unscathed if the mounds collided with them. "You're courting death," that person shouted coldly and spat out an icy breath. The icy breath condensed the water elements in the air, and with a crunching sound, it instantly froze into a sparkling and translucent ice spear. The ice spear emitted an astonishing cold air, and its speed was unexpectedly very fast. It fiercely collided with the several fiery red mounds that were coming towards it. Clang! The sound of metal clashing echoed in the air. The ice spear did not shatter the mounds, but only pushed them to one side. Then, it flew towards Han Tu and Han Jin. "Huh!" The high god who fired the ice spear let out a soft cry. He did not expect that his attack would fail to shatter the mounds. His eyes were glowing with amazement. From his point of view, although the two mid-gods possessed extraordinary divine energies, they shouldn't have been able to withstand his attack. But to his surprise, the mounds did not crumble to the ground as though they were made of iron and stone. He seemed to be interested in Han Hua and Han Tuesday. Instead of focusing on Rose, he focused all of his attention on Han Hua and Han Tuesday. After the ice spear, water dragons condensed from the element of water in the air and charged at Han Hua and Han Tuesday. His eyes were ice cold. He slowly walked in the air towards Han Hua and Han Tuesday. Han Tu summoned the energy of the earth and formed a wall of earth around him. The wall was imbued with Han Hua's flames to defend against the man's attack. This was to prevent the man from leaving the two of them alone and continuing to harass Rose. Although the intruder only possessed early-stage high god strength, he was, after all, a high god. Even though Han Tu and Han Hua had joined forces, it was still rather difficult for them to deal with him. It was at this moment that the surrounding mid-god attackers saw that they could take advantage of the situation and started attacking the walls with their divine weapons. They created even more troubles for Han Tu and Han Hua. Han Tu and Han Hua felt very helpless. They were hesitant to retreat in the face of the chaotic attacks and had no choice but to passively accept the attacks. Their calm and unruffled demeanor was nowhere to be found. The high god of water flew into a rage out of humiliation when he saw that the earthen wall created by the two mid-gods couldn't be destroyed even after repeated attacks. The high god of water flew into a rage out of humiliation. He launched several water dragons and ice spears at the same time and blasted them down at the same time. Bang! A deafening explosion sounded. The wall of earth did not break, but Han Tu and Han Hua were sent flying. Han Tu and Han Hua finally couldn't withstand the full force of the high god's attack. Han Tu and Han Hua were sent flying out from behind the earthen wall. Han Hua and Han Tu could no longer withstand the full force of the high god's attack. "Run!" shouted Rose. She knew that Han Tu and Han Hua had stayed behind to help her. She couldn't help but cry out when she saw that they were about to be killed. It was at this moment that many of the clerks and pharmacists in the store sensed that something was amiss. They came out from various areas and looked anxiously at the warehouse at the center of the store. In the past, although there would be sounds of fighting every night, they would only be heard within a short period of time. Most of the time, the screams were from strangers. But tonight, Rose's screams were too unusual. Therefore, they all came out from the warehouse. Unfortunately, these clerks and pharmacists didn't possess much strength. When they saw that a high god had intervened in this battle, they knew that they wouldn't be of any help even if they stepped forward. They would just be throwing their lives away. Therefore, they could only watch in the dark with worry. Han Tu and Han Hua, who were sent flying, were rather far apart from each other. Even though they had landed on the ground, Han Tu couldn't immediately bring Han Hua back to the ground. The water elemental cultivator was well aware of this. Therefore, he did not pursue Han Tu, who could use the ground to escape, but instead flew towards Han Hua at top speed. Han Hua, who was dizzy from the rebounding force, had yet to come to his senses. He continued to fall from the sky in a daze. Han Tu was the first to regain consciousness as soon as he touched the ground. He immediately realized what was going on and shouted, Little Hua, run! As soon as Han Tu's voice trailed off, Han Hua's body landed on the ground. Han Hua had also regained consciousness after the collision. However, Han Hua didn't have the ability to dive into the ground like Han Tu did. By this time, the water elemental cultivator was right in front of him, and Han Tu was very far away from him. There was no way for Han Hua to evade the attack. Han Hua knew that he was in a very bad situation. Run! Run! Shouted Han Tu as he desperately rushed towards Han Hua. He knew that Han Hua wouldn't be able to escape, but that was all he could say. His heart was filled with extreme fear. Damn it, I'll kill you. If I die, my father will avenge me. Seeing that it was too late to dodge, Han Hua decided to give up on dodging. Instead, he became enraged and charged at the man fearlessly while cursing. You're courting death, shouted the attacker with an ice-cold face. His eyes were filled with disdain. It was at this moment that an ear-piercing shriek sounded in the air. A 3-meter-long bone spear glistening with dazzling white light and carrying an earth-shattering aura of death tore through the space of 1,000 meters and stabbed straight at the attacker who was chasing after Han Hua. Meanwhile, the other bizarre energy that was filled with killing intent penetrated through the ice shield into the assailant's palm as though it had a mind of its own. It drilled into the depths of his divine body. Shocked, the assailant immediately retreated. The divine energy in his body flowed from his palm and arm back into his divine body. He did everything he could to stop the evil energy from invading his divine body. That one moment of carelessness had caused great damage to his divine body. By the time he gathered the divine energy in his palm and arm to defend himself, at least 3/10 of his divine body's functions had been destroyed. If he had hesitated for a few seconds, his divine body would have been completely destroyed. If he had hesitated for a few more seconds, his divine soul would not have been able to escape either. Who was the assailant? The assailant's body was drenched in cold sweat. He dared not to make another move against Han Hua, who was right in front of him. He looked at the bone spur that had shattered his ice shield into ice shards and was aiming at him again. He was terrified. A youngster wearing an indifferent face silently walked out from the depths of a dark street. One of his eyes was pale purple, and he looked extremely evil. 7 slightly shorter bone spurs were stuck in his back. Each and every one of them was glowing with pure white light. In just a few seconds, the youngster had arrived at the center of the Celestial Pearl Pharmacy. He extended his arm, and the bone spur instantly returned to his palm. Then, without uttering a single word, he flew toward the assailant who had been chasing after Han Hua. His purple eyes glowed. An enormous and bewitching flower bud formed from bone spurs gathered the element of death beneath the assailant's feet. The stamen of the flower swallowed half of the assailant's waist. The bone spur's petals firmly clamped onto the assailant. Blood instantly gushed out and dyed the spotlessly white bone spurs a bewitching crimson. The 3-meter-long bone spear shot out, forming a beautiful arc, from the sky. It was thrown at the top of that person's head. The bone spear pierced through that person's skull, directly stabbing him into the huge bone flower, killing him. From beginning to end, the assailant had no chance to fight back. The indifferent youngster clenched his right hand. The bone flower brought the assailant before him. The youngster took a step forward and grabbed the 3-meter-long bone spear that was still stuck in the assailant's skull. He pulled it out forcefully. Turbid blood, mixed with brain matter, spurted out from the hole in the skull. A grayish mass of air also flew out from the hole. It struggled to float away but was grabbed by the youngster's left hand and stuffed it into one of the 7 bone spurs on his back. The bone spur seemed to possess a strange suction force. As soon as the grayish mass of air was sucked into the bone spur, it glowed with a gentle halo. It took a while before everything returned to normal. The strange, enormous bone flower suddenly dispersed, then disappeared in the air in a strange way. That lifeless body fell to the ground. Even the soul of the dead body would never be able to return to its original state. This series of events happened in the time it takes for a spark to fly off a flint. Before the weaker clerks and pharmacists could react, the high god dark visitor, who had been swaggering around a moment ago, was dead. Not only that, he had died in such a dubious manner. The high god of thunder who was fighting Rose suddenly revealed a look of horror in his eyes. His movements slowed down, and he no longer attacked Rose as fiercely as before. It was as though he was thinking of retreating. Rose felt the pressure on her lesson. She stealthily glanced at the youngster who wore a cold face. Her heart was in turmoil. Who is this person? What is his purpose in coming here? Is he a friend or foe? What should I do if he's an enemy? An expert who could kill an early-stage high god in such a short period of time must possess at least mid-stage high god strength. A sneak attacker who cultivated in the energy of thunder was already a huge headache for Rose. If this youngster who emitted an evil aura joined the fray, Rose would have no confidence in dealing with him. The shop assistants and pharmacists who were observing the scene were also astonished. They did not know if the newcomer was a friend or foe. If the newcomer was a foe, none of them would be able to leave this place alive. While everyone's gazes fell on the youngster who suddenly appeared, Hanhua suddenly cried out in surprise, "Big brother? Why are you here?" "Big brother, when did you arrive?" asked Han Tu, who had finally made it to Hanhua's side. He too looked at the youngster excitedly and put on a silly smile. "I just arrived." The youngster, who had been cold and indifferent all this time, put on a faint but sincere smile. He looked at Hanhua and Han Tu and softly reprimanded, "The two of you are not working hard enough. You are too weak." "We have been working very hard. It's just that Big Brother is stronger." Hanhua scratched his head and said fawningly, "Big brother, thank goodness you came in time. Otherwise, I would have been finished." "That's why you have to get stronger." Hanhua nodded. He shot a glance at a few mid-gods who were trying to run away. A few bone spurs whizzed out from his back and shot towards them like the wailing of 1,000 ghosts. Suddenly, the shop was filled with gusts of bone-chilling cold wind. Miserable shrieks filled the air. None of the masked mid-gods managed to escape. All of them were shredded into mincemeat by the bone spurs. As soon as the 7 bone spurs moved, the person who was fighting Rose no longer hesitated. He decisively turned his head to look at Han Hao from time to time as he flew away. No one knew what he was thinking. Just as Rose was about to give chase, Han Hao suddenly flew towards Rose with his bone spurs in hand. When he arrived beside Han Hao shouted, "You stay. I'll go after him." Rose stared blankly for a moment. Initially, she did not intend to listen to Han Hao. But when she took a closer look at Han Hao and discovered that he did bear a 50 to 60% resemblance to a certain person, for some reason, she immediately became obedient. She let out a groan and flew towards Han Tu and Hanhua. "All of you, go back and rest. There won't be anything interesting to see today. Also, pretend that you didn't see what you saw," said Rose as she swept her clear and cold eyes across the crowd. The clerks and pharmacists tactfully returned to their posts, but in their hearts, huge waves were set off. All along, they had thought that the owner of Celestial Pearl, Han Shuo, was the most powerful person in the world. But after what happened that night, they realized that the Celestial Pearl Pharmacy had many hidden dragons and crouching tigers. It seemed that the Celestial Pearl Pharmacy was hiding an extremely powerful force. They were both surprised and delighted. After they returned to their posts, they discussed what they saw in low voices. "That woman, you did well today." As soon as the crisis was averted, Hanhua immediately became arrogant again. He cast a sideways glance at Rose and said, "You didn't run away by yourself. You're a loyal friend. I won't speak ill of you behind your back anymore." The first part of Hanhua's words was rather comforting to Rose, but the latter part of Hanhua's words made Rose lose her temper. She glared at Hanhua. Suddenly, something struck her. She looked in the direction where Han Hao left and asked puzzledly, "Who's that youngster?" "My elder brother, Han Hao. Didn't you hear it?" Rose had won Hanhua's trust. Therefore, she did not hide anything from Hanhua. "Yes, he's also his son?" Rose was stunned. Han Tu and Hanhua were already shocking enough, but Han Hao's appearance was even more unbelievable. "Of course," replied Han Tuesday. He looked at Rose with a silly smile and said, "Woman, you like my father, don't you? If you like him, just tell us. We are very open-minded and won't care about father's messy affairs. Hee hee, father has many women anyway. You won't make a difference. We are very satisfied with your performance today." "Shut up." Rose was greatly embarrassed. She cursed in a low voice and left hastily. "You idiot. How can you say such things out loud? I thought you were pretending to be naive, but it turns out that you're full of evil tricks," scolded Hanhua. "You're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.